Hello, you guys. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your host, Dr. Jefferson Brown. And today on the show, we'll be discussing the very controversial topic of the death of a nation or a race of people in America. I think that this has been a long awaited topic on this show, like a comprehensive discussion um, about this particular topic. This will be a thorough dive in for myself, of course. I think having the discussion requires that we take a hefty look into some of the different perspectives around what race is, outline what race is, and talk about some of the contributing factors to what can be perceived as the death of a race of people. Um, Annihilations of races of people or nations of people can happen for different reasons. And I have a lot of thoughts about the foundation, the founding principles of the country that we all are a part of in America. And we'll jump into those thoughts, my reflections, and at the same time, we'll have a really comprehensive discussion with some guests once they come in about these topics and some of their thoughts and opinions. The comment section is definitely open. I look forward to hearing the thoughts and reflections of you guys, kind of where you guys are on the topic of discussion, and getting a feel for where we are collectively, right, around some of the areas that I feel like are definitely contributing factors to the potential death of the nation, essentially. Um, so, without further ado, I do want to jump in, and I do want to talk about this. I have kind of selected some talking points. You guys do have to excuse me. I'm jumping back into StreamYards, but it's not as easy as one would anticipate. Before we get started and before we jump in, I do want to put out there this is National Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are winding down to the final couple of days of Mental Health Awareness Month in 2024. I do want to encourage those people, if you find that you are having or experiencing a crisis, or if you know somebody who's experiencing a crisis, to take the time out to reach out and get the proper help. Um, the National Crisis Line does have people that are employed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And those people, well, 365 or 366, depending on if it's a leap year or not, right? But those people are employed um, to help stabilize people that are having difficulty with their mental health, mental well-being, and that sort of thing. So um, there is that piece, right? And I think that that's really important. I think it's important that we utilize the resources that are given to us when we do have an opportunity in order for us to stabilize if it's necessary. So there is that part. I'm going to let Rush in and let him, introduce himself to you guys as I'm kind of getting our talking points prepared.
Yo, what up, what up? It's me, Rush, in the building with the doc. You know what I mean? I got a little podcast popping off. I'll be interviewing well-known YouTubers and celebs and stuff like that. So what's good with you, Doc, man? What we going to expound on today?
Well, the topic of today's discussion is the death of a black race in America. Um, and here are some of the talking points that we'll kind of speak to, right? This particular first one is kind of looking at how this nation was created, some of the founding principles that guides the creation of this nation, and really some of the founding principles that guide and construct the way that Black Americans identify as such, or Afro American descendants identify as Black American now. And what that looks like and what that means. And I guess the origin of the complexities of the Black race, or purity of the race. Um, when we speak to the death of a race of people previously, because the nation was founded by primarily European Caucasian people, um, some of that is, I think some of the background of that is we don't want to become them, right? Those people were oppressors of us. Those people who originally founded this country didn't found it with us in mind, right? It's that ideation that creates Black American, current Black American values around what it looks like to be included, or some of our predecessors sought us, fought for inclusion or equality for us, right? So when we look at things that are happening now in society, some of the constant argument around engaging in marriages, investing in marriages and relationships with Black people to Black people, some of the divestment that's now taking place in culture, in our culture, right, in society, the MGTOW movement, Kevin Samuels coming in and being a huge advocate for passport bros, if you will, that kind of thing, that movement as it's taken off now and really become a thing. Like, so does that mean that since, men have divested, women have divested, does that mean now that we're going to, now that we've chosen to divest from building relationships together, does that now mean that all of our kids will no longer identify as Black Americans? Like, now what is the new race? And does race now become a thing that's now obsolete because essentially this characterization system is no longer effective, right? So that's pretty much what it's about. So I'll kind of vie for some of your thoughts around it and what you think of, I guess you're, since you're a male, right? What you think of the MGTOW movement and men moving into a state of divestment from relationships with Black women, and what that looks like. What's the purpose of that for you guys? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? That sort of thing.
Um, two things. You mentioned about the black race within America don't really have a real culture in a sense. That's how I kind of took it, and in a sense, yeah, we pretty much adopt other nations' culture. We don't really have a true identity as a you know African American, or the ADOS. You know the acronym to that, and as far as that, in my concern, like, yeah, we kind of adopt everybody's culture and like fuse everything to a in a way of consolidating all cultures in one to one thing, and we kind of like do our own thing with it because we're trendsetters. Now as far as guys going through the whole passport movement thing, some males that are in a high level of economic socio status, they have the ability to live in both countries. They might go to Brazil, live out there for like a half a year, come back to the States and do the thing, and that'll be their momentum throughout the whole years of living. I mean, and males that have the ability to do that, they're looking for something more to just traditional, and it's not the case of them divesting. It's just that they're searching for something that's more traditional. And when you leave the United States and go to a different country, you automatically become like a top 1%er. It's no different than the females in the U.S. that might highlight a ball player or a rapper or a scammer. Those are considered the one percenters. It's just that it's just happening in a different country. And that's just my perspective. Of that. I mean,
Okay, so if I'm taking it correctly, you feel like to be the top 1%, right, of a said society, that black men now have to reposition themselves in another country.
It's not in that sense. Um, not in that kind of sense. They're not just moving out there because they want to be a top 1%. It's just so happened when you take the U.S. currency into a different country, like it just so happened you are a
Yeah.
top 1% or top 10% or whatever. They're not going out there for that. They're going out there to look for something more traditional. You know what I mean? And you're not going to find a traditional female in the United States due to the the leftist feminist movement.
Okay. So do you think women set the tone for the divestment of relationships, or do you think men do in America?
I would have to say women because they kind of like they get more traction than a male. I mean, like an unattractive female get more traction than an attractive male. I mean, it is what it is.
You think so?
I know so. If you a dime or you a bottom feeder, like you getting crazy traction. I mean,
So an attractive female gets more attraction than an attractive male, or an unattractive female gets more.
an unattractive female get more traction than an attractive male. It is what it is.
So where does the value of a person come from in your opinion?
I mean, I'm old school. You know what I mean? Integrity. You know, uh, being kind to people. Things that people don't care about no more.
Okay. So I mean, to a certain extent, I do feel like modern day people, when they look at dating, definitely don't take into context the character of a person.
Yeah, everything's superficial and surface level. That's it. Know what I mean?
Right. Do you think that it's possible that that first piece that you led with, as far as like the tendency for Black American culture or American culture in general, I don't know which one you kind of relate to for the most part, like taking the multicultural approach and taking and adopting various cultures, traditions, and things like that, that being an American thing, right? Or the way that American culture now redefines themselves. Do you think that that piece is a barrier to success, if you will, like in Black relationships? Do you feel like that lack of cultural definition, clear cultural definition, is a barrier to success in relationships?
Yeah, most definitely. As you can see, like African people with their culture, they're able to sustain a nuclear family, like because of their culture. You know what I mean? They have their own language, they have their own style of handling things, and it just helped them persevere as a unit, and even have an economic union to persevere in this economic crisis we have in the United States. You know what I mean?
Okay. So for just a second, we're going to go off cue, and I'm going to welcome my co-host Susie.
Hello.
So we were just kind of talking about one of the first talking points when we're talking about basically the way American Black culture was influenced,
Mhm.
from the first
Mhm.
nation of America being created by the founding fathers of America, etc., and how it is that we redefine Black culture over the course of the continuum of time in life, in a lifespan. So one of the things that he mentioned is that there is basically no one defining cultural concept there. There are multiple contributors where Americans are basically adopting a variety of traditions and customs from other cultures.
Mhm.
And so there is no foundation, if you will, for a culture in Black America, essentially. And so I was wondering to what extent that has to do with what we now are up against with Black Americans divesting from being in emotionally, financially, and physically sound relationships with one another and investing in what that looks like and legacy looks like. And since now black, right, is a characterization of people or the way people have been taught to identify themselves, right, in this culture, is that now dying since black people now want to divest? Because if you're not investing in relationships with black people, then how can you maintain a race? Because that race then is dying, right? Like the more diluted it becomes, the more irrelevant the argument of how it is that black people can't survive or can't make it, or how it is that black people are the people who have limited access to resources. You know what I mean? That argument then dies down. So, one of the major contributions he mentioned is that due to the income, right, the value or the weight of income in America, that black men can now become the top 1% earners in society if they reposition themselves in additional countries. Passport bro.
Okay.
So, do you think, um, Rush, just to kind of to give you some space before you have to jump off, do you think that the lens of multicultural inclusion is a negative thing? Do you think that that's a bad thing since Americans are now doing that, or do you think that that's a positive thing, considering the fact that America was created and founded by people that were escaping their own culture to create something new?
I don't think it's uh, a bad thing that we as a foundational Black American may inherit different cultures, different ethnic background groups, cultures. It just that's what makes us unique in the United States. It's just a subjective type thing. Like it's based on the individual, like on how they gonna take it, and you know convert it into a positive thing to edify themselves. Know what I mean?
So, do you think Black Americans are similar or very different? So, I mean, very, very different from people in the nations of Africa on that continent. Are Black American people similar or different, you think? Or more
I mean,
different?
phenotypically, we might resemble each other, but from a cultural aspect, we're totally different from the Africans. Most Africans don't accept African Americans. There's a terminology that they use called akata, and the word akata means a wild cat without a home. You know what I mean? And I take it as a negative stigma towards towards my peoples, you know what I mean? But like we was never the same people anyway. Like due to my belief as a Hebrew Israelite, I believe when the Assyrians took over the lands or whatever from the northern kingdom to the southern kingdom, we all had to migrate to different spots of the world. Some of us migrated to West Africa. Some of us migrated to Greece, and throughout time we lost our culture because we had to adopt the religion of the dominant race that we had to be subjugated and be put in a subservient position dealing with those different groups of people when we had to migrate. I mean,
So, do you think like the dominant culture of a society has to shape kind of subcultures, or do you think that it's okay for people to adopt their own belief systems and traditions and create their own subcultures under the housings of those major cultural acceptance?
um, we gotta, for example, right, as a foundational Black American, like we gotta because due to our social disadvantage in America, um, you know, jobs, etc. Like we have to conform our style in today's style. If we gotta, work in corporate America or whatever, we have to kind of adjust in order for us to fit in to be able to work with the dominant race. You know what I mean?
think that that's an interesting assertion.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that, Susanna, to some extent?
I think to some extent, for me, as I'm West Indian, right? So our culture is vastly different. Our beliefs, yes, even the way we speak and even the way we look, is very different. I think one of the things that I have observed over the years is I really believe that Americans has a tough time identifying who they are. So what you do is you see a continent, because Africa is a continent, or people your color, right? And since you live in a country where there are different levels, shades of people, you want to identify with the folks who look like you. So, I understand the African American, that how that comes about. Now, my kids are born here. My kids are West Indian. I'm sorry. that's how that's kind of how they identify themselves because they've grown up understanding my culture. And there's here. I don't take away what they understand and how they live here, but we eat, we talk. My oldest, when he's in conversation with my siblings, he sounds like me.
Hmm.
That's because he learned not just the kind of food we eat and how we think, but he learned how we talk, and he been taught how we talk. So I think one of the things I think Americans is not aware is that they have the strength to be able to create who they are and not adopt somebody else's. I've been here for 40 something years, and I will tell you in a minute I'm West Indian, and how I raise my children, how I think about life, boys, girls, whatever the issue is really West Indian oriented. And West Indians, a lot of folks who were slaves, when the ships got to the West Indies, they jumped off and have created a life there. So, but do I think I'm an African? I'm not an African. I'm a black person. And when I tell Americans that I'm a black person, a couple of things happen. One is, you African, or two, they laugh. And three, they ask me how long have I been here. And when I said how long I've been here, then I'm now an African American. I'm not an African American because I don't identify with those words, the culture around those words, and none of the familiarity of being a black American. And my kids kind of do. My youngest does more than the older one, but they very much has a West Indian philosophy of how life looks. But I think the struggle with American and some of this, if you could identify with some of this, has to do with the concept of how American understands slavery and
Hmm.
what that has done to impact the concept of a black man in America in relation to a black woman in America. A lot of that is how so American is struggling to figure out who am I,
Hmm.
and it's what you see is black and white when in fact what should be seen is people.
Right. I agree with that. And I think that there are so many young people who see the parameters of characterization in America on documentation right now in
Hmm.
America. They see that and they think to themselves, I don't know, maybe this is how it's always been, but it's evolved over time. Like
Hmm.
it used to be that the only two classifications when filling out documentation were black or white,
Hmm.
right? Or colored, should I say colored?
Colors, yeah.
But see, the thing is, it's now expanded and it has so many different other selections to be able to identify whether or not this person is multiracial, or multi-ethnic.
Hmm.
So they can identify, so people can identify who they really are, the core of them. But I do feel there is a lot of dilution now because what happens is when you start planting yourself in all these different other countries
Hmm.
and you start having children with all these different other cultures of people, you start to further dilute what it is that once at some point your ancestors fought to keep pure, right? And that's okay, but we have to accept that, right? So, and I think that that also removes that piece that Rush just referenced when he said that we have social advantages as Black and
Mhm.
brown people, right?
Mhm.
The only social advantage disadvantage I think that we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. There
Yes.
are no restrictions. I do feel like we do not live in a free country, though. I am a huge advocate of that because cancel culture tells us that the fact that we are, if we make a specific type of statement, we could be fired from a job, we could be displaced from a career, we could be removed from a facility. That tells us that we don't have freedom of speech as it's been articulated previously. And I think that I think because of those particular fallouts, I feel like we're enabling weakness of people instead of building strong and resilient, powerful people. We're creating weak, easily influenced, easily hurt people. You understand what I'm saying? I think that I think our old ways, to be honest, and it is bad. It's probably gonna come out bad, you guys. Look, don't cancel me.
Mhm.
Go ahead if you want to, but this is about accountability. The reality is when we previously were exposed to what are now derogatory language and things like that, derogatory comments from other races, we had to learn how to stand tall. We had to learn how to take that and not let it become us, not to consume it, right? So you can hear a thing, but it bounces off you simply because it really doesn't apply to you. Another person's perspective of you doesn't mean that's who you are. It doesn't define you. It only defines them essentially and their perspective of you. But now it's like whatever a person has to say about you, if we say that thing, it's your truth. You see what I'm saying? You make it yours. So it's the fact that the word like when black people can say the word nigga, but can't the hard R can't be used by anybody other than black people, or it's derogatory, defamatory, right? It could be a term of, what do they call it now? Hate crime,
Mm.
right? These types of things, because it's considered to be not only defamatory but hate, something that motivates hate or actions of hate against a race of people or individuals. So I think that a lot of that says that we are no longer living in a free country where freedom of expression or free speech is actually a thing. Like I now see us as more of a communistic kind of country in so many different ways. I feel like that's where we're going, you know, based on kind of the way the government is set up and so many different things that they're putting in place, that they're saying they're doing it to be inclusive of black people. I just feel like that's a way for a nation of people to silence us even more. We don't even see that. Like I think that we don't realize it's happening until it's really happened and we're all silenced.
It's kind of because the more you get what you want, the more you want other things as well. Because there's this continuation of trying to define yourself, such that you are lost in the process of really knowing who you are and where you stand. Because when you look at Black America, different shades are treated differently, are looked at differently, because the lighter skinned folks are often have more comments, derogatory comments made about them from a black person, literally. And I know because I have two kids and they're different complexion.
Hmm.
One looks white on a good day, and the other one is Negro.
Yeah.
Um, so but that's really about Americans, Black Americans, trying to figure out who they are and where they fit in this culture, rather than just be. You
I
are.
agree with that. I agree with that because when Rush said that there are these groups of people in Africa who don't like, Black American people, I think that the other piece that maybe you haven't examined, Rush, is that maybe these people see you as people that are looking for belonging in Africa. And people do like to place the reference, very much like Susie said, they like to place the reference of a brown person with curly coils with the nations of
Right, but
Africa.
that's just from colorism, though. I mean, a lot of these countries treat people better as long as their pigmentation is a lot lighter and quote unquote good hair. Like I am not a great fan of that. If your father's a black man, I consider you as a black person. You know what I mean? Like you know, it's just and this is another thing that keeps us separated and weak, man. Because like, yeah, my father's not from this country. You know what I mean, I speak two other different languages. You know what I mean, fluently, so I'm well versed and I understand different culture. And these are one of the tools that keeps us separated: culture and language. And if we want to make a difference as a collective, man, we got to put the pettiness aside and really work together as a unit. Because especially in this country, man, if we don't take action, due to all the immigrants that's coming over here, that's Hispanic, we'll be a permanent underclass, man. And that's something that we need to you know what I mean?
I
Always
do
think
agree. I
about.
agree
I
with that.
mean,
I agree with that
Mm.
wholeheartedly.
But if we understand the fact that Hispanics are also Black people, because
Yeah.
there are Hispanics dark as her here,
see,
right?
they wouldn't agree with you saying that. Know what I mean, they
I
do
know
not
some
believe
of
that.
them don't because
Yeah, so
what
some
they've
of them,
learned,
I
is
agree. Some of them do,
identified.
and some of
Yeah.
them don't. So
Mhm.
when they, a lot of it depends on which generation of a Hispanic person that you're speaking to, right? There are lots of Afro Latinx. So
Mhm.
lots of people who identify with the Black and brown community. That's why it's inclusive of brown people, because those set of people have already elected to be identified as Black people
Mhm.
when they initially apply for their documentation. Like, their citizenship application is an interesting process. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of people go through it, both friends, family members, and I've also seen clients go through that process. Some of them are encouraged to select white because of the way we look at population index in America, the census, right, and resources. And
Most of them, even the Black Latinos, most of them identify themselves as white. I mean, and I might catch a lot of heat from what I'm saying right now, but it is what it is, man. I'm in tune with the Latin community. You know what I mean? Um, and also the Haitian community. So, like I said, I'm well versed. Yeah, I mean, even the African American culture, man. I'm how can I say, like, I'm immersed into that, even through the vernacular, the way I speak. Know what I mean? The vernacular that I use, you can tell I roll with a lot of urban people. Know what I mean? That stems from that culture. You know what I mean? And I just have a clear understanding, like, most of these people that's coming over here, they don't identify themselves as Black. Matter of fact, they would take that as an insult. You know what I mean? Most of them, not all, but most of them. I mean,
so, do you think that people should have the right to self-identify when they come over here? And also, do you think that Black American people have the right to self-identify, to be labeled as and referred to as the way that they see themselves based on their own subcultural conditioning?
yeah, do that. They're forced. I want to say forced, but growing up within this American land, like, a lot of us take on certain European culture. You know what I mean? But we are the trendsetters. People copy what we do. You know what I mean? So a lot of the um, culture, we kind of fuse together and we do our own thing with it. You know what I mean? Because we trendsetters.
because that's what I was gonna say. There are several different African cultures, Ghanaian culture, Nigerian culture that take on, even in Gabon, that take on some of the Western culture,
Mhm.
traditions, customs, food, right?
Mhm.
Clothing, dress, fashion, these kinds of things. They take those things from Western culture, but for the longest of time, the world has been influenced by other cultures and exposure to other cultures and people. Like that's a thing that's been going on before America was even a thing. So I mean, exposure sometimes begets adoption. Like there are some things that you may want to adopt because you might like that thing when you experienced it in that culture and you want to take it back and make it your own. America is a country that has been founded around people trying to make something their own, trying to create
Mhm.
something new from something that was old and, in their case, inundated. They didn't like the religious practices there. They didn't like, some of the government policies there. So they wanted to create and find some, place to make their own. And I feel like it's interesting to me when I hear people that are white identifying say, "Oh, well, go back to Africa." Just because your descendants are from Africa doesn't mean that you're from that continent.
Yeah, like I said before, due to my belief,
Where you going?
um, I consider myself as an Israelite. I don't consider myself as an African.
Hmm.
The Africans, they're descendant of Ham. I mean, I'm a descendant from the tribe of Levi and all that. That's where my bloodline derives from. And like most people would ignorantly say that, yeah, you're an African, but really, phenotypically, yeah, we do resemble each other, but from a cultural
Doesn't mean
aspect,
that
like
you're
I
from
said
the same
before, we're
place.
totally
Right.
different people. I mean,
Hmm.
Mhm.
So when you hear people say something like that, do you think to yourself like that's an insult to me, or do you think like it's an insult to them because like literally, clearly, you don't know what you're talking about? Like, do I look
Mhm.
like
nah, I don't take it as an insult. I just be like, okay, whatever. He doesn't know.
Right.
okay? So what do you think about the mutual divestment thing? MGTOW movement, men going their own way, deciding that they're going to redefine themselves by way of marrying women that are from other countries instead of investing in women that want them for their high value construct of money that they can't provide or whatever. Do you think it's
Like
due to an inability to cope with living?
I don't think it's a mutual uh divestment. It is it's in a ripple effect from what the majority of the women from the states want. So with the
Mhm.
long listing of what they think a high value male should be, or what he should come with on the table or whatever, it just caused a ripple effect for a whole bunch, not just in the black community, but all communities. They're going out the country to look for something more traditional. It's a ripple effect from, quote unquote, leftist feminist movement. I mean,
Why do you say leftist feminist movement?
because that's just how they're conditioned to do, is just to do their own thing. Everything is self-centered on them. You know what I mean? Like this, nothing else matters but their own career, or and how they should be treated. You know what I mean? They have no sense of empathy for the male that's, you know what I mean, trying to engage with them to conjure up a tangible relationship. You know what I mean? Food for thought, you heard?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I know it's coming up on 8 o'clock. I know you got an interview at 8. So go ahead and tell people
I
that.
got 20 more minutes. I'll dip like around
Okay.
8:20.
Okay, cool. So Susanna, go ahead, tell me your reflections on his last comment because I'm still trying to process it.
Which part of it?
Oh, these
Because
leftist feminist movement women that have motivated men to go and seek out MGTOW passport, bro.
that's not the feminist movement. Feminist movement really is just woman wants to be able to be identified. Well, it's not about us classifying that we are just looking to be acknowledged. That's really what it is. Woman just wants to be acknowledged. And I think part of part of what I see as some of the issues with how men and women handles relationship in America is because there's this focus not on what we're building together and what we're putting, what are we as a couple trying to build so that we have a foundation to live our life and raise our children with, certain kind of values and stuff. That's not happening at all. Really, the struggle becomes, who's making more money, who's more powerful in the relationship, and not even thinking about the relationship. That's really what I see is happening, and that is that level of thinking is the continuation of Black in America really trying to identify who they are, the continuous struggle of who am I as a person. And I'm Black, he's Black, but he's light skinned. I'm Black, but he's brown skinned. So whether it's money or whether it's the shade of your skin, it's just a transfer of something else to really demonstrate the struggle that Black is having to identify who he or she is.
So you still think it's about self-identity. And one of
Absolutely.
the things that he mentioned in his leftist feminine movement rant
Hmm.
is one of the things he mentioned is that Black women are centered around self. They're selfish now. All of a sudden, everything is about
Yo,
self.
Doc, don't say that, man. I ain't say black women. I said all women. No
Oh, it's all
discrimination
women.
over here. Yeah, yeah.
Woo! That's hot. I like
And
that.
what's wrong with wanting to be able to present yourself in such a way that you are important and you matter and you deserve the things that you want? What's wrong with that?
Listen, it's not me because I'm not an advocate for marriage. But most men that's wealthy and that's looking for a traditional wife, y'all not giving it to them from the States, man. That's why they're going overseas. They're predicting in a year, I could think like 2030, 50% of women is going to be single and childless. You know what I mean? And it's a fact. I see it coming. There's going to be a lot of cat ladies out here. You heard?
I can believe that, considering the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's a mutual divestment. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, and I, to your point, I will agree. I think it is not just a Black woman thing. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
women in general thing, and I do think more women are self-centered. And I do not look at selfishness like your traditional person. I
Mm-hmm.
think from the clinical lens and also from just a general lens, for me, I look at selfishness as an essential component in order for us to be fully self, because we have to focus on self and know what self has to offer before we can offer and attach ourselves to anybody else. Like if we don't work on ourselves, when we do attach ourselves, we're inadequately showing up for those relationships. And I do think that the young women of today are, that's a different thing. I don't think that that's a self-centered argument. I think that that's an immature space argument. I think that nobody gave those women the blueprint for life. And I think that the same is I think the same is a thing for men. For the young men of today's society, nobody gave them the blueprint for life,
Mm-hmm.
and then they decided to go and lean more heavily on environment for guidance as to what it looked like for them to be a Black man, for them to be an American white man, and for them to be an American Hispanic man. Because what you see is, even in Hispanic culture, in Indian culture, in Asian culture, the
Mm-hmm.
more Western culture exposure that child has, the less they look like what we traditionally respect and have come to know, to acknowledge as what a man is, right? So they're not the provider male. They're not the man that's looking to be chivalrous and open doors for a woman. They're the man that's looking to get in before the woman out of the rain. They're the man that's looking to take the clothes off the rack that the woman's going to wear. And look, young men, hey, I'm saying it because it needs to be said. At the end of the day, the way you look, the way you present yourself has a lot to do with the type of woman that is in your presence. The reality is, these young people, whether it's male or female, don't even know how to present themselves to the public socially, oftentimes. And they're trying to re identify themselves by saying that they're self driven to express themselves the way they want to. as a way to get out of being held accountable for a society having an expectation that's realistic and makes sense, in my opinion. That's my opinion. But to go back to that piece, I do feel like we're closer than further away from women leading very single lives without them having children, because they are divested from relationships with men because of that Western culture shift. That's what I see. And I think that it's not because I don't think that the fault is on the men. For once, I'm going to say men do, in my opinion, control access to relationships. However, when women are presenting with so much masculine energy over their feminine energy, right? And they're trying to redefine what a man has to offer them in a relationship, what do you want a man to do? Like at that point, like what is he supposed to do? Convince you that this is what he got to offer you? Or let you step on and be by yourself? Because the reality is, if he's already identified that all the only thing that he can give you is this, right? But you're asking him for that, and it's not reasonable. It's not within his reach. It's not something within his grasp or his capability. What then do we expect the men to do? That becomes my question. Like, what do you think? What do you think, Rush? Is that the reason that you are not an advocate for marriage, or is there something else
Now,
key?
there's many factors. Um, I'm not an advocate for marriage. It's too much. I'll be talking to you all day if I were to come up with a list for it.
Top
But
three.
you
Go.
know, the focal point of me not being an advocate for marriage would be the court system. Um, it's totally unfair towards the male. Know what I mean, it's very biased with a lot of these judges, and whenever whenever a male knock up a female in the United States, he loses his leverage. Like he will be at a subservient position for about 18 years dealing with that female if he has kids with her. Know what I mean,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he be the person? Why do you think that the man wouldn't get access to his child and wouldn't be the primary parent versus the woman? Like what about the court system
one, we
makes
don't
it?
have reproductive rights in the United States. If you want to delete the male's baby or keep it, he has no say so for that. Two, you know what I mean? The female, like she could be, homeless and hooked on drugs. She'll still be a custodial parent over the male. Know what I mean, that is just totally unjust. But I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't know, no, not be pessimistic, but sound pessimistic. You know what I mean? These are just facts. Most males and females don't really expound on this. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's a conversation that needs to be had, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think American court systems are awarding men custody of their children when they're more fit than the
Yeah,
female.
after they blow
Exactly.
half their savings. You
Well,
know what I
no,
mean?
you don't
Like,
even
come
have to.
on. Listen,
Listen.
man,
I have
going to court
I have
is not
personal
cheap.
friends that have gone to
Getting an
court and
attorney
pro
is not
se. They've
cheap.
gotten custody of their kids just based on the reality of the fact that they're the person that's
Personal.
more of a
More
sound parent,
stable. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Than the mother. But it's also, like I said in the very beginning, sometimes we create the disadvantages that we think we have placed on us by our
Personal.
parents.
Right, but that's just one factor, though. That's not all of it. I'm just giving you some a
Well,
quick.
I think I would agree with you if you were saying that you were an advocate for marriage in that case, because when you're not married to the woman, those are some of the struggles that men.
Others. And the reality is.
Yeah, but if you're
Well,
married to
let
a
me revise
woman,
my statement then. I'm big on staying sucker free. You know what I mean? Anytime you knock up a chick that's not down for you, you put yourself in a real vulnerable position. And I'm an advocate on staying sucker free. Here,
good God, so you don't have any kids.
now you know this, Doc. Come on, man. You've
They
been
don't
cool
know.
for a few
The
years now.
people look.
You
The
ain't got
people
no drink
don't
for
know.
that.
It's somebody out there watching this. Like, I bet his baby mama got him on child support. And
And that's why he's talking like that, right? Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Oh, she about to go put him on child support for real now. But no. But the reality is, I think that when we don't expand and we don't have the conversation, people continue as if this isn't an issue for them. And to be honest, I'm an advocate for people living their best life that they see is their best life, right? However, when it starts to infringe on other people, right, I think that we have to have a different type of conversation. The Black American race dies within, I'd say, maybe 3 generations of dilution. Like, if we continue to dilute,
Mm-hmm.
you will no longer see anything inside of a person that mimics or looks like it
Like
was
that.
from that original Black American man that started that lineage, essentially. Because as the lines go on and they continue in that other culture, they become acculturated from Black American culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is, when you're exposing these people, your children, your lineage, to this other culture, that becomes the legacy that you leave here. So eventually, I feel like there will be no Black American culture, period. And I do feel like the women that are being called, if you will, to account for that whole men going their own way and women being super self-focused are women like our next woman that we're going to talk about. That is Vivica Fox. Vivica Fox, now being 60 years old, for those of you watching and don't know, has decided that she now wants to pursue a long-term relationship, and she's now putting an application of sorts out for men to apply to be her husband.
Mm. Oh wow.
Now, now, and
60.
many, right, and many people are saying she's busted, disgusted, had these reconstructive surgeries on her face in a plethora of settings, and now she looks completely unattractive. And you've waited too late to now decide that you want to invest on someone to marry you. And that is what will become of the culture of women in America, because they're too entitled, they're too self focused, like he said, on their careers. So, what are your guys' thoughts?
Um, well, Vivica Fox situation, yeah, she waited too long past her prime date in order to look for something stable with a male. But like, there's a few things that's going on with her because of her socioeconomic status is on that different tax bracket. She is forced to quote unquote to be a sugar mama. There's no way that somebody on the same level of income is going to wife her up because she's too old and unattractive. You know what I mean? But she is in a position where she could buy a Playboy. You know what I mean? That's just her reality right now. You know what I mean? She hit the wall. She crashed through the wall, and then she has no chance of finding somebody on the same tax bracket or higher to wife her up because, you know what I mean? She's done up, man. It's a wrap up, man. And yo, females should you know what I mean, learn from her mistake, man, because you're gonna be old and alone just like Vivica, man, if you don't wisen up. You know what I mean? Food for thought, you heard?
Wow. So she's too old. Okay. Because I'm just thinking of how old I am.
Right,
Not
right,
only
right,
too
same
old, but
here. Right.
she's
I'm
unattractive.
single.
You know what I mean? She's unattractive too. So I mean, like, yeah, man, she ain't got
Oh,
no
she's
hope,
too
man.
old and unattractive. I just saw a couple get married that were like in
The 100. When
early
they're like 100?
or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's an anomaly, man. That's not something that happens.
It is. It is.
That's not something that happens on the regular. You heard?
So hi, Miss
But
Queen Sunkiss. She says, her first comment was, there is a Black woman that's running for president, and she is a Native woman, and as her the vice president candidate. And then she said, there is a 60-year-old man that can walk to the grave with her. Lord. And there are plenty of single old men as well. Oh, okay, let's
Yeah,
get with it.
that's true.
Rush. It's plenty of single old men that have not joined the MGTOW movement, and they're looking for somebody to cook them some grits, eggs, oatmeal, something like that in the morning. Get their meals ready and sit through life with them.
And rich old man who's got as much money as Vivica and then some.
So my first question is, why is it always about money in America? Why is that the first thing that we always
Because
naturally
most
gravitate
women
towards?
put that as a focal point for the relationship. Like that's the
Hmm.
important factor of whether or not is he worth getting into a relationship with. If his money's right, that's the first thing y'all females talk about. Well, yeah, he seems cool, but what does he do for a living? Can he pay your bills? You know, that'll be the premise of the conversation when y'all conversing about a man that you're dealing with within your personal lifestyle. I mean,
Really? Most women? Did you say most women? Because I
I
think
didn't say
that's
all women,
men.
but yeah, most women, yeah.
I think that's men perception of women, and that may not be built around reality.
Well, see, I'm
Because,
going to agree with Mrs. Sunkissed Queen Sunkissed. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Listen,
Hmm.
when I said earlier that there is a general expectation of what we consider a man to be, a traditional notion of what a man's position in society is supposed to look like, men essentially are protectors and providers for the femininity and the legacy that's held within woman. So I think that that's the reason that women want to be provided for. Now the thing is, right? All of these men that are deciding to go their own way, they're in cultures and countries where they're expected to do just that for those same women that they're wiping up.
Hmm.
So I don't think it makes sense for a man to make the argument that men don't want to provide and do for women. Because the reality is, if you're going to those other cultures, it's the father that's telling you that you're going to provide and you're going to protect and you're going to do for his daughter. It's not, you're
Absolutely.
not getting that from a feminine point of view.
Mm-mm,
Right,
that's right.
but like, let's not let's not let's not ignore that most women in the United States immerse themselves into thought culture. You know what I mean? They're on the gram showing the buns, they're showing the goods, you know what I mean? And they're advertising themselves for the highest bidder. So this is why a lot of men are kind of like seeing it for what it is, you know? Because yo, dudes are waking up now. They ain't a bunch of suckers running around here no more. I mean, you still got a lot, but you know, there's a good portion of dudes that's waking up and taking the game for what it is, man. It's a cold world out here, man.
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you what a wise man told me, man. You can't turn a wolf into a house pet, man. So you gotta stay sucker free.
What? Can't. So,
Can't turn a wolf into a house pet. Okay. Mm.
Lord.
Mm.
Okay, so look. So he says that the problem, I don't know if he or she, the problem is you got women wanting to be the man so bad. It's the norm. Now, I do agree with that.
Mm.
I do feel like a lot of women lead with a lot of masculine energy. And as a result of that, it's next to impossible for men to create circumstances for their families to thrive. That goes back to what reference I made earlier. If a man has told you this is the kind of life that I'm offering you, that I'm giving
Mm.
you, this is where I'm coming from. As a woman, you're supposed to accept it or reject it and move on. The gift of discernment was given to women. So make the discernment that he's that guy for you or he isn't. And as a result of it, move on. You can't force him into a place of insecurity and then try to emasculate him because you feel like he's less of a man because he's not giving you the life that you said that he should be giving you because you have unrealistic or unattainable goals and expectations for him out of that
Mm.
relationship. But I do feel like there are several women in relationships that are realistic or several women that haven't even been picked yet that are
Mm.
realistic and more than willing to come to the table offering elevation for a man,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So many men are burned from looking at what society is painting out to be that socialized norm, that I don't even think those men are even tuned in no more. They've already checked out because they think that all of their options are these subpar women who are unrealistic with their expectations. And to go to the notion that Rush made earlier about women being in thought culture. Okay. Um, this is an accountability channel, okay? So we're going to take accountability for that. A lot of young women nowadays are very sexually promiscuous. And that's not me saying that I feel like all women should go back to the days of save yourself for marriage. But I feel that you do have to be mindful of the company that you keep. I'm just going to say that and I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to. I think that the type of life that you live has a lot to say about the type of person that you are becoming, not are, right? Because we're always constantly evolving if we allow ourselves to do that. But if you constantly are around riffraff, then you're not going to have a chance or an opportunity to elevate yourself to, better opportunities and put yourself in better company because they're going to see you as an extension of riffraff. I'm just saying. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on that is after this statement I make, I got a boogie because I got to get ready for my channel. But here's the thing, right? It's a dirty game we playing, man. A lot of these chicks, they got a lot of beta male orbiters around their phones. You know what I mean? While they dating somebody. In lame terms, they already got a whole roster of dudes that's getting at them, and they picking and choosing and using them at their leisure. You know what I mean? And dudes like me and other content creators, we getting the youth hip to the game on how the most women move. You know what I mean? You're not the only dude talking to her. In my perspective, you shouldn't wife up a female that don't got a hymen. You know what I mean? She ain't got a hymen, you can't give her a diamond. You know what I mean? That's my perspective on how to deal with, creating a tangible relationship that's going to transition to marriage. But I'm not an advocate for marriage in this day and time, man. It's a cold world. Like I said before, you can't turn a wolf into a house pet, and it's very imperative for these dudes to stay sucker free. Because if you don't, you're gonna be paying for that. You heard? Yo, Doc, thank you so much for having me here. I got a boogie. I'll catch you on the flip, and I'm gonna hit you up next time I go live. You heard?
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, sir.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
All right, peace.
Okay. So as we are that's interesting. That is interesting.
I guess for me, it's like where the woman learn that those were behaviors that may in fact attract men to them. Where did they get that from?
I For some reason, right? I do not believe women thought those were behaviors that would attract men to them for the purpose of marriage. I think that those young women are women who thought that it would attract men to them for the purpose of them using them for money. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I like that she had a comeback for.
Oh, maybe
He can't build a house, treat him like a mouse. Oh, child.
But maybe it is how she identifies herself that she has to do those things to be able to say, I am good, I'm worthy, look at me, I'm sexy, I'm pretty. And that's really a self-esteem issue, right? And it's really, and maybe it's also because there might be a belief in some women that that's what men want. That men want women looking like that because they get attention. Men actually, men actually complain about how a woman dress and stuff, but then they want a woman dressed like that. because it's sexy and it's provocative. But I know we were looking at this video the other day with the girl and the boyfriend, and she got inappropriate clothes on a date. But I was thinking that's something he liked until he and her decided
until
to go out. And I
it
think it
became an extension of who he is as a man.
absolutely. And that's what I think what's his name was just talking about, but didn't say that men like to see women like that. But when other people make comments about how that looks, maybe inappropriate, then he steps back. They step back and make her the victim in the battle to like be have a relationship with a woman who you think you liked how she dressed, but now suddenly she's provocative and inappropriate.
So Miss Queen says women that keep their legs closed get ignored. That's
Oh wow.
interesting.
Interesting.
And
Really?
men refuse to take accountability for the mindset of women currently. And I do agree with her on that part, not the first part. Look, Queen.
Ignore. Because we have, believe it or not, we grew up with the belief that the man rules.
Well, I think
And
men do control access to relationships.
yeah,
I
I agree.
wholeheartedly agree with that because men are a woman cannot make a man be in a relationship, okay? And I heavily believe that these young women that are out there proposing to men these days are doing themselves a disservice, to say the least.
Mhm.
Because the reality is, if a man hasn't positioned himself to make a proposal to you, to make you his chosen one, that means that he's not
He's not
you. And
interested.
even though you are choosing him, he's still not chosen yet.
Right.
So that means that there's still place for him to select somebody else.
And that by you practicing that behavior, it makes him think this is really not what I want because you are taking over my role.
So
And what does that feel like for me as a man to have a woman proposing to me when it should be the other way around?
let me ask you this. How do you feel about men deciding to no longer seek out women, or like Rush said, not marry at all,
No.
to not procreate, to not do any of that? Considering the fact you've got Vivica now looking for a husband and she's 60 and she's just
Six.
now looking for I'm sorry, Miss Fox, but I got to tell you that you probably should have been positioning yourself to find a husband a lot sooner than that.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that you are not qualified to find love later on in life, okay?
Mhm.
Not saying that. What I'm saying is it's illogical. It's illogical to expect people to not know the history that you've led with, ma'am. That's what I'm saying.
Interesting.
We all know the people that have been inside of your vagina. And every man who's now going to vie for an opportunity to be your husband is
Mhm.
he also knows, unless you're
Mhm.
about to get you somebody from another country. And that's a
And he will know too.
yeah, that's a possibility. And he might know as well.
Mhm. She's famous enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Her I, no, no. But I'm gonna say that this it's I do feel like it's creating a baseline for these young women who are promiscuous and multi dating, and these young men who are divested currently, for them to say that it's okay for them to do that divestment and then get back to it when they're no longer viable dating candidates, to
Mhm.
put it nicely. So she said she'll find an old dude that hope
Yeah.
hope not.
Yeah.
I hope the best for her. I really do. I just don't feel that, because see, here's the thing. Even though men control access to relationships, that also means that women control their level of desirability in relationships. So if a man sees that you have a history of being wifed up or being married, being taken, he's more likely to see, especially if you've had long marriages, right? Long
Mhm.
standing marriages, good relationships with the people that you've been in relationships with. He will then see that perhaps this is a solid woman, right? This is
Mhm.
somebody
Mhm.
I can build with. And I'm not saying that he's right all the time. I'm not even saying that those particular parameters being, put in front of a person are really indicative of those things. I'm just saying that that's how most people think. They look at your track record, right?
Mhm.
And so if you've had a history of being married and building and wealth extensions of man, right? Or carrying on the legacy of a man, having respect for a man, having respect for yourself as a woman, these kinds of things, they have a higher tendency to wife you
Right.
even later in
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Versus the
Mhm.
woman that's been promiscuous and, very well known in these streets.
I never committed to any one person,
Right. Right. Because it says
one
that we're going
ideology.
to be trying for the first time. You cannot be trying at 60, man. You trying for the first time at 60.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how to ride a bike. I ain't never ride a bike. I ain't about to try now. I'm not about to fall my big old self off somebody's bike
Mhm.
and break something that will not heal
Yeah.
easily
Right.
at this point. Okay. So
Mhm.
I have the same idea when it comes to trying to now find and try love for the first time at 60. If you've had a history of being with people and adding value to people, that's different. But you're trying to do this thing for the first time. You want to
Right.
woman up at 60? Girl, bye.
Mm-mm. It may go with the perception that women are dating later, having kids later, getting married later, and all that stuff in life. So 60 is much later than what later
Right. That's what I'm
represents.
saying.
But
That's what I'm saying. 60 is a late later.
that's
You're a real
grandmother's
late
age,
bloomer.
right? Hmm.
It's okay to get your period late, but it's not trying. You can't be trying to date late. You can't be trying to first for the first time. I'm trying to see what marriage because you let me. So I'll say this, okay, Miss Queen Sunkiss. You said that she'll be fine, and we all hope that. But let's let's refer. Open your Bibles too. Let's refer to Mary J. Blige. Okay,
Okay.
okay. If you know, you know. Okay, Mary J. Blige has a very interesting history in her relationships with men. And I know a lot of y'all are just now finding out that she had that inappropriate relationship with that underage boy. But look,
Mhm.
she has a history of her being a certain way with men. And the certain way is desperate, clingy, and willing to accept whatever is
Whatever.
given to her. That's the history. So every man that walks into her life, it's like she's got that written on her forehead. Literally, they didn't even have
Mhm.
because this is even before the news was like a big thing with TMZ breaking all the bad news and the
Mhm.
bad and all the private details, okay, about your life. Now, her history, her industry record preceded her. And so men took advantage of that. They knew her history with men. They knew how she was in substance use culture. They knew how she was in the music industry. They knew the corners that she cut. They knew the people that did favors for her. They knew the people that she screwed over. Okay. They knew these things and they dealt with her for their own benefit. They will
Mhm.
continue to deal with her for their own benefit. And they will continue when they make their exit to take what it is that they came for in the first place.
Mhm.
So, in the same way, I feel like Vivica Fox has to sit with her realities as well. We
Mhm.
are who we are. She said she was on crack too. Child, she was on a lot more. Look, listen, and I'm not, shaming her. I'm just saying
Mhm. Mhm.
who we are, and you got to take your lick. So you can't be looking for love right now for the first time at 60 and expecting it to show up, land in your lap as something. I
That's
mean,
why she put it out there so that men who are interested may apply.
Yeah, she literally did. She said that's a look, she's right. She's wanting men to go ahead and apply. She did say that. Those were her specific. Yep.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So I think that the reality is the death of the black nation is going to be due to people like her that lead to movements like MGTOW and Passport Bro, because you think that, because you're young, you have your whole life ahead of you, and you need to live your best life now. And what that leads to, what that means is live your best life translates to be in these streets.
Yeah, doing whatever you want to do.
Right. And then you expect for somebody to want what's washed up,
That's
that's no longer valuable, right?
mm,
And take that and treat it as if it's pure
gold. Mm-hmm.
and it's of that same level of value. You're not going to get that same quality of man.
Mm-mm.
And the reality is, I almost understand and overstand men wanting to go their own way and divest from marriage, because I can understand and I see clearly the options that the majority of them have in the women,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But let me see. She said she gonna get men of her caliber to apply.
Well, sure. She will attract a certain type of guys.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Her caliber. She said,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Younger black people are getting married. I do think some of the younger black people are getting married.
I think they're living together
Mm,
because they have to.
yep. I think they're cohabitating more so than they're getting married. But the younger black people that are getting married extend from the line of black people who have family values that are invested in
Right.
marriage on both sides. Um, I think, unfortunately, the younger you get, right, the more unrealistic the expectation of the man is in black culture. And because it's unrealistic, I think these young black men now decide to go with other options, because that's the only thing that they have.
Mm.
You understand? Because other women are willing to build while these young black women are not willing to build, because they think that they can instantly get rich on TikTok, Facebook, whatever. And
Mm.
those young boys don't want to do that. Some of those young boys want to go to college. Some of those young
Mhm.
boys want to position themselves in front of, Fortune 500 companies and stuff one day.
Right.
Like, I think that we have to be realistic when we set the standard, right? And that's just kind of where I am on that. Said the gender war stuff is 30 and up problems. That's interesting. Most of the gender war stuff that you see on social media are people in their 20s, early 20s to 30, and
Mm.
early 20s because they feel like they're not 30 yet. So they don't have a
Mm.
reason to be rushed into marriage. So I see them getting married. Okay.
Mhm.
Where are you located, by the way? So you said some of them came from single parents' homes as well. So just because you're in a single parent home doesn't mean that you don't come from a culture that's invested in marriage. You can, so single parent homes don't mean they don't believe in marriage.
Marriage.
They happen to be
Or that the dad is not involved in the family.
right. It just means that there's just one parent in the home. It's yeah. The father could have died. The father could have divested or left the relationship, and he still could be very much
Much
involved.
involved with his
But the
children.
core
Yeah.
values of that family system believe in
Mhm.
marriage, because people don't get married. It's an anomaly when a person gets married when they come from a system that doesn't believe in marriage.
Mhm.
Okay, because the system has to be able to tell them what marriage potentially could look like for
Look
them. They
like.
have to be able to see a picture coming up of what marriage can look like. And I guess I would argue that social media could show them,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But the problem with social media, given that picture, is that sometimes there are unrealistic expectations as well on the couple, you know. But you don't, just more often than not, you don't see people getting married when they don't come from a conditioned culture
Okay,
of
right,
marital support, you
right.
know.
Or there is not believe that marriage is important.
So she said these conversations are old folks conversations. So what's the conversation? I
You
think
mean like Vivica Fox old folks? We old folks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Says I married at 20. These men that are going with other options are not building anything. They are shutting out. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I'm just curious. I'm catching up on comments. I don't know which one.
Hmm.
Oh, I do feel like some of them, I do see some of the people. If you look at a lot of the focal point of the highlights, right, on Kevin Samuel's content
Hmm.
just before he died, oftentimes he was having those conversations with some women that were over 30 or close to 30 or 20, should I say over 25, right? And or
Hmm.
in their 20s with children, multiple children, and unrealistic about what he felt they qualified for in relationships. She says she's in the US. Okay. So if we're looking at the marriage rates, the statistics, the rate of people getting married actually has declined greatly over the last 10 years. So, YouTube and social media creating content since 2009. Okay. And what fractions of people would you say are the people that are investing in marriage? Mindset, as far as like kids coming out of, because that would be kids coming out of high school entering into college, right? If they're getting married by 20 still. That's my next question. Said these conversations are being driven by non-married people, old people. Non-married old people. Which conversations? Like conversations about the end of race or not being able to get married when you get older? That's an interesting thought.
Because I think of it as the other way around.
Right. Right.
You get married so we could have two income to be able to survive.
Right. But then I think that also goes to her previous comment where she felt like men are not getting married to build anything. But I didn't understand the back part of that either.
Mm.
So let me find that comment real quick so you can help me understand what you meant. Is it this one? Yeah, this comment. What did you mean by the end when you said they are shutting out the women in other countries? Says yes, young people in college and graduating are getting married.
Okay.
Okay, that's interesting.
The 25, 20, 20, 25, 26, 27.
Not in an abundance though. Well, the stats don't report that. So legal filings for marriage certificates don't report. That's not what it's saying.
I think they're living together more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that they're living together.
Mhm. And doesn't see the need to be married.
Hmm. Because they have everything that they want without having to invest completely in the person.
Hmm.
Like what then becomes the benefit of marriage, right?
Hmm.
So I have adult kids that some of them believe in marriage heavily, and they come from a very marital minded or marriage driven
Hmm.
culture. But some of them believe in marriage, some of them don't believe in marriage because they see of course kids are exposed to their parents' relationships and their family
Hmm.
relationships, but they are also exposed to the environment and society.
Hmm.
And they see things unfolding in society like everybody else, right?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
I think that some of their main, talking points or arguments about against the marriage is that, you know, they don't see a lot of benefit in
Right.
marrying a person who hasn't got it all together, or at least got enough of it together to add value to them and what they bring to the table. That's coming from some of my male kids
Mhm.
between the ages
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
21 and 30.
Or that people are getting married but then getting divorced.
Right. And especially like some of their friends as well. Some of their friends have the same sentiments,
Mhm.
and that's coming from that particular comment comes from a kid of mine that's very marriage centered. Now I have had like clients in therapy that are men who believe that the options for them are very much like that young man we saw in that video, Susanna.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to marry a person that the world has full access to everything that you do. So it's basically like you're not getting married. What are you marrying? What's she saving for just you?
Right.
Nothing. I
Nothing.
think that speaks to that piece of young women learning to place themselves in spaces that allow them to receive what they're really looking for, what they say they're looking for, because if
Mhm.
you're looking for a person to take care of you, they're not going to be taking care of you and you're out here embarrassing them in the street. You're half
That's
your
right.
booty is out. That
Mhm.
and it's on the internet. The internet is forever.
Mhm. That's right. You argumentative with him. You make decisions. Demasculate him. Those are those are not those are qualities that men, as what's his name was talking about, is reason why men go and marry women from other countries, because other women, as you said earlier, have been positioned and trained on how to be a woman, mother, and wife all their life. So they know their roles, and I think it's very different in the American culture that black woman doesn't understand what their role is as a woman and as a wife and as a mother. And the men is and I think as we look at the young men also, they don't understand what their role is as a man, a black
I
man
think
in
so.
this country.
I think that that's true too. I think that was interesting that Miss Queen Sankya said she doesn't see younger generation having these conversations.
Oh no,
This topic today,
no.
right? This topic today, I just want to point out, it was suggested by a viewer who is 26 years old.
Wow. And that age makes
It's
sense
a male.
because he's probably have somebody in his circle, if not his life, that he's interested in and trying to figure out how does he show up as a man.
I think I didn't ask a lot of questions,
Hmm.
um, but I I think it comes from a place of fear. I think it comes from a place of fear. I think that young people realize that the more they are having conversations that make them feel like it's insignificant, the things that they've been taught to identify as important qualities of themselves, right, are now going to be obsolete, right? Because he's been taught to be, this particular viewer I know has been taught to be a very strong black man. And what it means to be a strong black man is to be able to provide, to protect, to honor
Progress.
your
Hmm.
race of people, but also your lineage or your,
Hmm.
legacy. And since his father died, he's made it kind of like his thing to carry on his father's legacy. And his father was a black man, his mother is not. She's
Hmm.
a Hispanic woman. So he identifies with black culture, but he also is Hispanic. You understand what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that it's a heavier burden, I think, to carry
Right.
forward.
Right.
Just to kind of give you a little bit of context, because I've had a chance to be featured on a show where he was also speaking. And I felt I could feel his pain because when people say, like Rush said, Hispanic people feel like it's disrespectful for a person to say that a Hispanic person is black. And here is a young man who heavily wants to be seen as a black man, and black culture constantly, disavows or
Mhm.
him when he's not in the company of his family. First line, right? So I feel like it's difficult for young men to carry on a legacy that is a dying breed of people as a centralized focal point of identifying who you are.
In
And
this American culture.
right, right. So I think it's okay to let go of having to be black. I do. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to let go of having to be black American. I
Mhm.
think it's okay of letting go of having to be African American, because I think that African American is so ignorant. Those are my personal views, because Africa is a continent, not a country. I had to say it slow. So the many nations of Africa, right? Why do we have to be
because because Americans believe that black people come from Africa, and
us?
we sort of
That's
look like them,
motherland.
right? Huh?
Motherland. That's what they.
Because you've gotta, if you want to be different from this culture, the white culture, you've got to attach yourself to something else that supposedly looks like you, so you can identify with that, which is Africa.
I think
Because they can't identify with Europe, right? Which is predominantly white looking. They can't identify with that.
I don't even agree with that. I don't even
And
agree with that, because
I,
that's the thing. Like, European people come in different colors,
absolutely.
skin colors as well,
Hmm.
and they always have. I think that it's interesting the way that we see the rest of the world if we are only raised around and cultured by American culture
Right.
that teaches this very skewed view of the rest of the world. And
Because the rest of the world is not black or white.
right,
The people.
they're identified by the region in which they come from, and,
Right.
I think that that's what we
By their
should.
culture.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because American people are multicultural. America is a very multicultural
Like
country.
molten
Okay,
pot. Yeah.
it's like a melting pot of sorts.
Hmm.
So I think that if we let go of having to define ourselves as black people, I think that that charge that his father gave him was too heavy. Those are my thoughts. We don't have to identify as black American, because that says that we have to let go of the other part of us. His mother is a Hispanic woman from
Hmm.
Mexico. So why do we have to identify as only a black American if this other part of us is still very
Hmm.
prevalent
Hmm.
and deserves to be carried on as well? Right? So I
Hmm.
think that we have to let go of having to separate everything in America from black to white. And we have to learn that we're just American, because that's, first of all, that's the way the rest of the world sees us, because that's the country we come from.
Hmm.
American culture is a culture, believe it or not. It's a culture of acceptance and inclusion, unfortunately. And that's the
Hmm.
that I think that a lot of us have been conditioned to not see as a
It should
reality.
be a culture of
Right. Because,
acceptance and inclusion. It's not.
but it is though,
But
because
I.
it's acceptance and inclusion with freedom of speech if we allow it, because it says that we have the right to disavow, we have the
Hmm.
right to redefine, we have to
Hmm.
we have the right to decide to invest in or divest
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
whatever is put inside, placed inside this country that allows it, right? We don't create laws that ban people from celebrating their culture of origin here. We actually are inclusive.
Promoted.
So we
Hmm.
promote the celebration of other cultures within our culture, because we recognize that there are subculture of people that exist within American culture, and even us, right? And even our founding fathers. All of us evolved from a culture that was escaping, trying to create something new. If we take that viewpoint, I think, right, then we can create space to accept the fact that America could be a place of multicultural values and constructs and acceptance and inclusion, and we can be whatever we wanted to be. But I think when we create this space where Our
Black
mindset
and
is,
white.
oh, it has to be black or white.
White. Mhm.
Um, to be an American thing, or it has to be this or that, right? Or you are defined by one parent and not both, or your
Mhm.
grandparents don't matter, or your
Mhm.
lineage doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Adopt this and not that. I think
Mhm.
that that's the piece that makes life complicated. Eventually, there will be no black or white because there is just so much intersection.
Mhm.
You know, I think that it won't be
I
because
think, yeah, I think that's the it's moving in the younger generation because they don't see the younger generation really don't see black and white. they they see people. Really, I really think they do. I think the older generation is the one who perpetuate this black and white distinction, and you see it in relationships. The black guy sees a white girl he likes, so he goes with her. The black girl sees a white guy, she bees with him, and it's not about he's white and I shouldn't be with him because my dad said I shouldn't. She saw something in him that fits her, and vice versa. I think it's the much older generation who perpetuates this black and white system that holds this country hostage to who you are as a person in America.
I think that's interesting.
Hmm. I really do. I mean, because you know,
So I think she's what um, Miss
the-
Queen Sunkist is saying is that because Black people don't teach history of us as a culture, that's the reason the culture is dying. But she doesn't feel like the Black race would. And she considers the young man from earlier to be biracial. His Black father was biracial, so he's now multiracial, triracial,
oh wow.
if you will. You understand what that's what I'm
Hmm.
saying about that diluted sense.
You see, I'm not biracial, even though I'm biracial.
Hmm. Right, because both of
Because
your parents came from the same
yeah,
place.
if you
Right,
see my mother, right, you see a white woman in her younger days, but she never identified as a white woman.
exactly.
My dad is half white, half black. He never
Hmm.
identified himself as biracial or mulatto because back in the day, that was the language.
Yep.
He's a black man because he was dark skinned and my mother was light skinned, but they came from the same culture.
So
Spanish.
wouldn't you think? So thinking about it, because so if people come from all different, if people have all different shades of skin and they come from the
Mhm.
same country and they're conditioned with the same cultural norms and traditions, right? Are they not of the same culture? Are
Yeah.
they not of the same race of people? Because
Yes.
I just want to clarify, races or nations of people were races before we became an America divided by a separate,
Hmm.
race. And she made some very good points around how people who are European feel about being referred to as white because they're not. White is
Hmm.
not European
Right.
because it isn't. Those are people that left Europe because they didn't agree with the rules in Europe. You understand what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
if you don't
Because
agree with the rules,
color is
you're
not
divesting from a
key.
culture, people to create your own culture. You become whatever you become in that culture that you're now
Hmm.
creating and trying to shape, right? She said, I'm glad I've reared our children to be proud of their blackness. So,
Hmm.
have you done that? I don't know what your history looks like or what your lineage looks like. Have you done that and rejected the other parts of them? Or do you come from a black family that's everybody's black and their parents are all black and
And they're
nobody has a different type of ethnic background? That's my question to you. Spit in the face of what our ancestors went through. I
mm-hmm.
don't think it's spitting in the face of ancestry. I think that it's continue to hand down the legacy, right, of multicultural identity so that people know that they have a part of them that exists that came from this origin, whatever that origin is. I think it's hand down traditions and cultures that have been adopted but continued based on whatever historical context they come from, whatever framework they come from. I think that that's the answer. I'm not a so far less left or so far right person because I do believe that when you embrace something too much,
Mm-hmm.
you have to. Yes. My colleague, I know. Give me a second, Saya. I know what. Look, that's Saya.
I heard him.
But I give me a second until I'm done with this. I cut my foot. Okay, give me Brian. There's a tiny cut on it. Give me a second. My colleague has hurt his foot outside. Let me grab one of these children to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so Michael Lee cut his foot on the
Oh.
trampoline, jumping off the trampoline, should I say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a thing. He got a little slit, child. So that's a serious
That
situation.
would slow him down.
You
Okay.
know, it'll slow him down. He got a little slit. It looked like a paper cut, but here we go. It's a cut. Okay, but here we go. I don't think it's spitting in the face of ancestry if we hand down our culture appropriately. I think that we can hand down our culture without denying other parts of a person. I think that splitting is what causes so much mental health disorder presentation in our people because we feel like we have to identify with this and not that. If
Mm-hmm.
you are a combination of things, if you come from a plethora of, people, I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I speak 27 different languages. I'm multicultural and I still identify with Black America. But that doesn't negate the cultural identity that is in an abundance that is handed down to my children and
Mm-hmm.
their children. And you understand what I'm saying? So I think there is a way to do it without feeling like you have to label that person as one or universal
Right.
or unilaterally aligned with one part of themselves than the rest of themselves. What are your thoughts?
There's nothing wrong with being a Black American.
I like that. See? So I wonder if Asians have conversations to tell each other, don't identify as Asian, just be American. Shaking my
I
head.
don't
Actually,
think so.
yeah, they do have the conversation when it comes to second generation Asians
Mm-hmm.
that are in America and now American citizen because we're born in America. They do have those conversations. And they do have the conversations as to whether or not they identify as Asian American
Asian
and
American.
whether or
Oh,
not they dilute and what that looks like.
right.
And they still hand down Asian culture. And sometimes once their kids have aligned themselves or married other people, I have
They
friends that are. I have one friend who labels herself and her kids as Blasian culture because she married a Black American person
mm-hmm.
and they had children together, and their children had to learn to embrace all
Mm-hmm.
parts of them. So not to separate from their Asian roots from
Mm-hmm.
Thailand, but to keep those very much close at bay. She learned
Right.
how, and she embraced and learned how to cook her husband's food, learned
Mm-hmm.
his cultural traditions, and they kept with the Asian culture
Mm-hmm.
traditions and the Black
Black.
American
Mm-hmm.
cultural traditions.
But he's also educated even before they're married about the Asian culture because
Yeah,
there are things that is expected of her as a wife that he has to understand and cannot, should not change.
right. And I think that people do have to learn to be comfortable with having the conversation, because if you do
Mhm.
not have the conversation, and I think the one point that she made that was correct is it's important to keep a good sense of
Yeah.
culture, right?
Mhm.
To know where you come from and to hand down your history, whatever that looks like. But in
Mhm.
order to do that effectively, you must learn to either invest fully in your one
Mhm.
race of people, right? One culture, or embrace collectively in whatever culture you're aligning yourself with. And I think that that's the part for so many Black Americans. That's that piece of fear, right? I think for so many of them, they're afraid that what will it mean if I no longer am Black
Right.
American?
Right.
In Asian culture, they're not white Asian,
Right.
they're not pink Asian, they're not purple Asian, they're not, excuse me, brown Asian, and they do have people of the
Right.
skin pigmentations that I just named
That's right.
in Asia.
The
They do.
Asian.
But they are just simply Asian, identified by the specific area in which they are from. So
Mm.
Chinese, Korean, you know, Taiwanese. So these are
Vietnamese.
things,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
the reality is but everyone is that way. Only America thinks it's okay to be a separate a color of American.
Okay. Right.
I think that that's just so, it's interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
So there are no other parts we Black. Okay. I mean, if that's what you know, you know.
And if that's all you know, then that's it for you. Then you right.
Right. Because I wouldn't know. I can't be the expert of your ancestry, only mine.
Mhm.
So let's see. Let's get to these as we're wrapping up.
Mhm.
Said
Now,
Southern Black at that. That's a further division. That must be rough. Says the FBA race is not dying. FBA. It's just being redefined because the majority of Black men is not getting married or having children or playing the stepdaddy cleanup man. Hmm. Hmm. Child, it is. I'm telling you. Struggle.
mhm. Yes.
So I was just about to ask, what do you think about that comment about the stepdaddy cleanup man comment? I don't know what that really means. I don't know. If you're still watching the Big Cheese, give me some clarifying comments on the stepdaddy cleanup man. Or I mean, if a Black man is not having children, doesn't that say that the race will die then because it dies with him? His legacy is not continued on through his children. Says, which is why we have so much self-hate and want to escape our Blackness. Does that mean you have self-hate? Because so if your mother is white, right, and your father is Black, and you identify as Black,
Right.
you don't carry on any of your
Mothers.
right? I just don't know how that works. Let me know how that works. Let me know how that works. Is your I guess I
Because
don't
I
know whether that
think
was acceptable ever.
because I think when there's a black and a Americans say the black and the white parents have kids. If the kids don't identify with black, they're ostracized by other black people. But
Right.
there's conflict because my mom's white, my dad's black. Who am I? And I know she said earlier that they are biracial. So how does that now fit into the black race?
Right.
How,
Because
how,
here is the reality, right? If if they have if they have a sense of who they are, right? a healthy sense of who they are. Let me clarify. If they have
Mm-hmm.
these kids have a healthy sense of who they are, they identify with all parts of them. They don't lose
Mm-hmm.
one part in order to satisfy the ego of the other parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if what I'm understanding from your comments, Miss Queen, Sunkiss, what I'm getting from that is that you think that a person who comes from two separate cultures of parents, if one of those parents are black, they have to
Then
identify
you're
with
black.
only the black person. So they have to divest from the other part of their family. Good God, I feel sorry for them when it comes to a family reunion.
Well, because you hear that if you hear the the stigma that if you've got if you got a black one ounce of black blood in you, then you're black, even if your other parents is white. I mean, I've heard that all the. I'm like, I don't know. Even if one of your parents is white, but if as long as one is black, you are black.
If you have a drop of black, then you're
Yeah,
black.
yeah.
That's
If
what I used to hear. And then people used to be like, I'm
right,
taking your black card, Lakiana. I'm like, I
black
love you
skin, blue
black.
eyed kid. Well,
Have at it. Have it where it's at.
all right.
I'm still going home and I'm still gonna have those same, you know what I mean? So the reality, we are who we are.
Mm.
You know,
And if you
another person's perception of us doesn't affect who we
right.
are. And if we go home every day to a white parent, to an African parent that is from Gabon, if we that means that's our culture. If we go to an African
Mhm.
parent that's Nigerian, that
That
means that is our culture. If we go home to an Asian parent, right? But we still
mhm.
have that other parent that's black. That means that
Mhm.
that's our culture. So I think essentially just because a person has a drop of black in them, it doesn't make them a person who is black. It makes them a person who is whatever collective culture they are.
Mhm.
And that sometimes means that they're a black American culture people. Sometimes it means that they're a combination of cultures of people, which
Mhm.
would speak to them being multicultural or bicultural, if you will.
Mhm.
I think that it just depends on that person. You understand? But I think to
Mhm.
be a race of people that say, oh, well, you have one American parent, so you must be identifying as that American parent's child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That line
Yeah.
of people,
Mhm.
right? It's illogical. It's illogical.
You see, I think uh, the conversation that we've been having has really been surrounding about culture. Black, and I think Black American does not think of being Black in America in terms of culture. It's a race. There's Black and there's white, and there
Mm,
really isn't.
yeah,
But that's how it's
because the
perceived. So
reality is black. I love the abundance of people who are black and they proud. I love it. I love it.
right?
But the reality is there are people who are delusional all over the world. They exist all over the world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are
Mm-hmm.
people who are super woke all over the world. There are people that believe that God told them to kill and blow up people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In this world, so your beliefs is not something that I'm going to fight. The reality is, in every other culture, whenever a person is applying for citizenship in the country of America, listen,
Mm-hmm.
hear me out,
Mm-hmm.
they're not applying for citizenship in Black America.
Okay.
They're
Right.
not applying for citizenship in white
In
America.
white America.
They're applying to become an American citizen, to cross cultures and then intersect in American culture. They then are people who identify as multicultural because of the countries that they have citizenship in. Now, initially, when people were Nigerian American or, European American or whatever, Latin American, these senses that make sense. You know why? Because they came from a culture of people classified by where they were from, and they
Mm-hmm.
came to another place that they now live in. Like they're from there now, they live in this place, and they're intersecting the two. Right? It becomes
Mm-hmm.
multicultural when people intersect more than the two. But you're being raised in the same country. Black
Mm-hmm.
people, white people, brown people, green people, orange people, whatever. when we're raised in this same culture of people of multicultural identification inside of American culture, we're all just American. And I love it. Black and proud.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. I really do. But the reality is, to what extent do you start saying, if we divest, right? If
Mm-hmm.
we choose to divest, if that's a conscientious decision that we're making and black men are no longer getting married,
Mm.
right? And
To
this
black women.
this is a new day, and a high value black men have raised their standards, and the dating or marriage demographic is highly competitive. That's interesting to me. The standards being raised. What were the previous?
Has raised their standards.
Yeah, what were the previous standards for them getting married? And what makes them dating or marriage demographic highly competitive? It's always been competitive. Like, it's always been a competitive market to marry a woman. It says, and non-black women understand this better than modern day black women. Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I
But
don't
they
know.
probably have always understood it better
Right.
because of their culture.
Yeah. Because maybe that culture is heavily invested in marriage and it's always been that way.
And she is raised to understand what that means from
Right.
a little girl.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is, if modern day black women don't understand a construct that you're saying is introduced by and for black men, right? Increasing their value on the market,
Mm-hmm.
whatever way. Whose fault is it? Who's raising those modern day black
And to
women?
black women.
Because according to this other commenter, Miss Sunkissed Queen, she blackety black. Oh, her
um,
daddy, her
the
mama,
South Black.
everybody is blackety black.
The South
We
Black.
all black. So if we all black around here, who's raising my modern day black woman who does not know better than other women group
Mm-hmm.
of modern day the
Mm-hmm.
value of my black man?
And what is it? What does she mean? I mean, how does men get to the stage where they're raising their standards in dating? Like, what is that? What does that mean?
Right. But maybe she got it. Maybe Miss Queen Sunkiss gets it. Let me ask her that question. Do you know that these men have raised their standards for dating and marriage demographic for black women? Because she did say that she know lots of young people that are still very much invested in marriage. So said, let go of black and just be American. So yeah, I did say that, and I think that eventually, remember I said it's gonna take 3 lines, legacy lines of dilution. Like if you dilute the water with the thing for some,
No,
eventually it loses its base, right? So her children currently are Blasian. That's her reference to her children.
mm-hmm.
And that's also the way that she sees herself now, even though she's 100% not from America. um, but she still sees herself as Blasian because she's looking at the cultural context.
Right.
She's identifying with Black culture in America. And Black is an American characterization
Construct,
for
yes.
the man that she married. That's how he
Mm-hmm.
identifies. So I just want to clarify that. Blasian, because they're going to accept and embrace his Black culture that he's given to them, but they also have to accept her Asian culture. She has adult
Mm-hmm.
children now. One of them is an adult, the other one is almost there, but her adult child is in a relationship. I think she's in a relationship with a Hispanic boy.
Okay.
Now let's talk about what that looks like, right?
Right.
Are they Blasian?
They're
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
Because
don't know.
they've been slowly being removed from the black and the whatever mixture of her, that is. They're now creating something different too.
Right. It says nobody wants to let go of their culture except Black folk. I'm not saying that you need to let go of anything, child. What I'm saying is The reality is eventually the genetics become so diluted that no longer standing in front of you is a person that you can recognize and everybody else can recognize and call them black. That's
And
what I'm talking
yeah, and
about.
black
Even
is
the
not.
children that I'm speaking of right now,
Mhm,
her children,
mhm.
you cannot look at them and tell. Oftentimes, one of the struggles that her daughter has come to me with is that people keep telling her that she needs to stop trying to act black.
Mm,
So I'm telling you, their mother, the vagina they came from, is not one that is black. So what do you expect her children to look like?
right.
Their father, who was a black man, was a mixed man with white and black parents. I don't know. I just, listen, listen. I can't. You can't make this stuff up. The reality is, his kids are now what a second legacy line of blue.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, who am I? When they come to me and they ask me, I say, you identify as you see yourself. The
Yourself,
culture
right?
that you see yourself embraced in, and you
Mm-hmm.
accept every part of it proudly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like for you. And she said, I trace my family root. But you shouldn't have had to trace your family
Yes, yes, yes.
roots if your family constantly handed down culture. Or maybe you made a comment about that earlier. But I think culture should be handed down. Legacy lines have to be handed down. We have
Mm-hmm.
to do our due diligence. I know my family line has
That's
always done that. We
mhm.
all we have a matriarch in on every single cultural part of my history.
That's how the family doesn't get extinct.
Hmm.
But I think culture culture is a really difficult concept for American to understand and incorporate in their life because the focus is on black or white.
Yeah, instead of just being American, because I think that's the part that's missing from the overall conversation, right?
Hmm.
So I
Because
want
I won't be black, I'd be biracial. And biracial means what?
mm,
So you won't be black, you'd be biracial. What is biracial?
Black American men are no longer getting married or taking single mothers seriously like the baby boomers generation. I feel sorry for black mothers. The black mothers have their children's fathers. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I guess.
Right.
Um, you think the baby boomer generation?
That's us.
You must have been raised with a different baby boomer generation, sweetheart. Because
Mm-hmm.
sweetheart, let me tell you, baby boomer generation black men did not take baby mamas.
No man.
They did not. They are taking no baby mamas. I don't know who
No
lied.
man. They got married.
I don't know who lied to you, child. No, ma'am. No,
No.
no. Mm-mm.
Those men were raised to understand what it is to be a man and a
Hmm.
husband and
And
and a
those women
wife.
were raised to
Raised.
understand that if they had children that came from a previous relationship or marriage, that they had to leave them with their mothers because the other man, the other man was not going to be accepting that. So I think that that's an interesting. There were very few men that would accept something like that.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
just being
the idea is you get married and you stay
yeah,
married till death do us part.
right.
So there is
And
no need to bringing other children in the marriage because we are
exactly.
creating our own
And if a
forever.
girl happened to be sexually assaulted by a family member and ended up pregnant, or
Mm,
had sex and was promiscuous and ended up pregnant, that would be for her family to deal with, essentially.
hmm.
You see
That's
what I'm
right.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've never had an opinion on it either way.
But everybody was taken care of.
Yeah, it's I don't know, you know.
Mm. Mm.
But so, I think that that's interesting. You said, I traced my roots because I wanted to be sure that it was as black as I was told this week. And we are. Wouldn't it be as black as you were told anyway, though, if that's the culture you were raised with? Like it wouldn't matter if the reality is somebody lied and said, because that was a thing. So I don't blame her. You remember that? Like somebody saying, "Oh, this is your daddy," but that really wasn't the daddy.
Right. They got the same eyebrows.
You know, like it was a thing.
Like the
Now,
fetching.
listen, parents, y'all cannot be out here lying to these children out here again, telling them that somebody else their daddy and it's not their daddy now. Because now they got
Hmm.
Dana, and Dana's going to tell the truth. Okay? So
Yeah.
she says there will always be black people.
Uh-huh.
I agree. I'm sure there will always be some black people in existence. But I think that that's a self-identity thing. I think that's a how a person self-identifies.
Right.
So I think that culture, the subculture of Black America eventually will be so become so diluted that they'll eventually people will recognize that it's not worth my
It's
time.
not that important.
Yeah, it really isn't. Because it's a direct slap in the face of the people that are standing in front of you. When the people in front of you are not of that culture and you're raising kids with them,
Hmm.
it's disrespectful for you to disregard them and say, okay,
Hmm.
because your skin color is white, our kids won't carry on legacies or cultural traditions from your your culture, and you look white but you're an Italian person, right,
Hmm.
that moved here from Italy. I don't think that that's something, and I know for a fact that's not something that black men are trying to hold on to. They're just not. They're not. If they're going over and they're marrying women from other cultures, what they're not doing is trying to push their blackness onto that other culture and say you have to now devote um diverse I mean divest from
Hmm.
your culture of origin.
They
Because
just want somebody compatible with them.
yes, it's about compatibility. I think that if
Hmm.
women have lost their direct connection and understanding black men, I think they have to learn how to find their way back to them if they're still interested, right?
And
It's a
allow him to be that man that he is destined to be and not try to be him, a him.
right. Let's
Why
see.
propose to a guy? I mean, we talked about this earlier. That's not your role as a woman, in my opinion.
Oh, so he's talking about black men being the income, upper class income demographic. I Money is so interesting to me. The discussion in the black community about money is so interesting to me.
Because it represents power, it represents white
Mhm.
leadership. That's what that is. That's why culture is missing from all of this because it's about a competition
Mm.
to have money so that you have power. When in fact you have a whole lot of power when you are able to understand and identify with your culture.
I
But
think
folks
that
don't
that's
see that.
interesting. So men think that they are higher value because they make more money in black America versus thinking that they are higher value because they have higher ethics and more moral standards.
So the higher value means that they're more likely to get a woman the more money they make.
Okay.
That's Kevin Samuel's language, higher value.
That well, there has always been the language of high value and low value men and women.
Oh, God.
But I think the construct in which that exists is what shifted with Kevin Samuels following. I think that a lot of them started to think of themselves as high value men if they made a certain amount of money. They don't
Six
think
figures.
about if they're of a certain type of mindset. They don't
Mm-hmm.
think about if they are of a certain type of moral character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they don't think about that kind of stuff, and I think that that's one of the things that has so many people marrying and divorcing within the first 3 to 4 years. I There was a conversation that I had earlier about Janet Jackson
Uh-oh.
Janet, forgive me. I know
Yeah.
Jackson. We love her here. We do.
Mm-hmm.
Janet Jackson is known to be America's most strategic and intelligent Black woman in the way that she navigated her relationship with a non Black man
Mm-hmm.
and had a child with that non Black man, signed
Mm-hmm.
a prenup, which most Black women are opposed to at this point. Signed a prenup with that non Black man and still won. Left the marriage $200 million richer. 100 million for having stayed the course determined inside of the prenup that said she needed to stay in order for her to even be entitled to any of his money. The hundred
Mm-hmm.
million per, right? And she gets another 100 million if she gives him an heir.
What she did.
She walked away with both.
You are good. You're good.
Baby, you
What's
go
that song? Jackson, if you nasty. She good.
okay. And people talking about Jermaine Dupri couldn't pull it out of her. She couldn't get married to Jermaine Dupri. He
Mm-hmm.
he may not have had the right mindset to lure old Janet in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, men control access to relationships. When women, however, will definitely divest and leave you if they find that they are not happy. And
Mm-hmm.
if a woman is strategic and she's intelligent, she's smart with the way that she does it, she's going to make sure that she doesn't leave at an inconvenience to herself. So I'll say that about that. So if you put your value in your money versus you putting your value in your character, you will get done in the same way that Janet did that non-Black man. If that's what you want for yourself, if that's what you want for yourself,
Oh
go get it.
dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Woo child. I said, well, people always told her that she never would be a mom because she would never get married, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
in
So
20
there's hope for Vivica Fox. I mean, Janet had a baby at 50, right? Was she close to 50?
she was, she was,
About 50?
she was
Mm-hmm.
50.
Mm-hmm.
She was. But baby, believe me, she made sure that she got it in. She did. She made her. She met all her goals.
Yep. And a male too. Mm.
Says black people know what folk who are authentically a part of the culture feel like. If she is acting Black, it means she's trying to fit in with folk that don't accept it. Oh, talking about my friend's daughter.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I wouldn't know. She can't act something that she isn't. Her father's Black. Have to act. I mean, her father's biracial, correct language, but he's emerged in Black culture. So there is that. Okay. Let's see.
Mm.
Oh, I looked at that one. Said all Black folks can't say that. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Yes.
Says no America without Black folk. If they're born here,
Yeah.
if they're born here, it'll still be a country that's in existence. Dark
Mhm.
skin, light skin, brown skin, middle skin, light skin, bright orange skin, yellow skin. The country gonna be here, and so will they.
Mhm.
Said
Yes.
54% of Black men are single and childless.
Mhm.
That's what the stats say. I agree, but you know,
And what age are we talking about?
says during the baby boomer and Gen X generation were the biggest simps and worship female attention. Eh, We okay, we lived it, so I'm just going to say that may be what you see projected on TV. That's what they
Right.
were encouraging.
And we know TV never tells the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff is skewed.
And so
And
media was different back then too. Media was geared towards trying to encourage people to do things that they traditionally were completely rejecting back
mm-hmm.
then. So that's interesting. I said masculinity is being competitive. I don't agree with that. I think that women are competitive as well. But there is a very feminine characteristic of competition. I think men wouldn't know anything about that though, because men historically have been doing men things. So they haven't
Mm-hmm.
been worrying about what women do. They've allowed women to bask in and sit in their feminine energy and do what women do. And men are away at war, men
Mm-hmm.
are away providing, men are away creating new ways to protect or creating cities and roads
Mm-hmm.
and things. They're doing things, they're meaning.
Like they're supposed to.
Right. But now you have more men that are very argumentative, doing things that women are
Mm.
traditionally known for.
Needy, want to be taken care of,
Right. And I
demanding.
think I just think sometimes we have to become of the mindset, should I say, of allowing people to do and lead in their positions as they will. I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes feel like the new world that we live in, where we have all of these pronouns and different ways to self-identify, and the world has to then accept it, it creates a complexity for people. Because then what do you say to that man who wants to be identified as her, they, that you've identified that he's a man, he's a he, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you then say to him? Because he's obviously very much in touch and recognizes that he carries a lot of feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he dresses like one would assume a male would dress, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he just has more feminine energy that he wants to
Mm-hmm.
lean into. And maybe he even dates females that were born females, cis women. It's so much complexity to that. Like, what do you then say to that guy?
I asked him what his name is and call it my name because I'm not insane. The pronouns are weird. I am still trying to understand I understand the concept of him wanting to be called her and vice versa. I'm still trying to understand the concept of wanting to be called they or them. How does that? I'm still trying to understand that piece.
I think,
No, she was married before, so that's it. So she's beat Vivica Fox already.
yeah, she was married. She was she was married and she got her bag after. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That ain't it. One thing that you can say about Janet
Uh-huh.
is that she went and she got it. Whatever it is, she got it. Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
So he says Vivica Fox missed the
I lived 35 years ago.
Lord, I can't. Mm-mm. 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 I said I wasn't gonna do this, and I'm not gonna do this
We're
now.
not gonna do that. We're not gonna bash a black woman.
Mm-mm. 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 Those women out there who want to get married for the first time at 60 years old, I have got to say that's a very high, high,
That's brave.
high, high goal to set for yourself. And like I said, I hope for the best for her. I just don't think that she's, in my humble opinion, okay, when you know, you know. I don't believe in the sexual marketplace value construct, but I do believe that we are heavily defined by the things that we do and
Mm-hmm.
the legacy, that the imprint that we leave on this world. And I think that the internet It's not her friend.
No,
Even for the guy that didn't know, he'd know.
because perceptions are distorted on the internet. It's not
Hmm.
built in reality.
Right.
Nothing.
Hmm.
Literally nothing.
And to be honest, even the facts of the internet, even looking at her arrest history and things like that, like it's yeah. It's Vivica, girl, I hope you found what you're looking for, girl.
I
I'm
always thought she was beautiful.
okay. Okay, girl. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if they what they were saying about her is true or not, saying that she had several plastic surgeries and that
Yes,
kind
she does.
of mm,
You see it in those commercials, and I go, um, too bad blotch job. Like you got too much cheeks that don't fit you anymore because you never had those cheeks before, and your nose doesn't look like yours because you didn't have that nose before.
I was looking and I don't know.
You see,
Sometimes
I don't understand it because she was always a beautiful woman, and what is it about her that she felt she needed to change the way she looked or enhance her appearance? Because she's always had a beautiful face. I don't know, but it's not going to work at 60.
I don't think it will.
But
I
there's somebody for all of us. I mean,
I
there's a
think
guy who's having
her
the same issue
somebody
as her
I
at
think
60.
no, I think her somebody has died already or is near death.
No, he's out there, Mr. 60,
He's
61.
out there. I'm sure. I'm sure he's out there. I just don't think he's breathing still.
She may have somebody and just put that out there so that she could introduce, this is her presentation to introducing us to that man.
Oh, asking
Well,
for asking for applications.
because she already have an applicant.
So I think sometimes the way and I hate to say this, but I'm gonna say it, okay? Because it's there. I
Good.
think sometimes the way the people that we are in relationships with move on from us have a
Mhm.
lot to say about us.
All right. Absolutely. How we presented ourselves to them while we were in a
Her
relationship.
ex, her ex is 50 Cent, who now has a very young, sporty, fine little thing. Okay, young thing, young thing,
50 cents. Okay.
in her 20s, I think. If I'm not
Mm,
if I'm not misquoting, I think she's 25.
okay. Good luck to her.
Yeah, I just don't feel like I feel like those are really, really high, high, high goals. The thing is about reaching over 60. I'm gonna tell y'all something. It's hard to reach. It's some it's sometimes hard. It's hard to climb. It's hard to climb. It's hard to climb sometimes. I'm telling you,
Says
your
a married
knees do
woman.
not.
You are all set.
Your knees don't even work the same anymore. Meg the Stallion is not in your knees. They are not. Like what? They are not. They are not. And you're gonna need some assistance with getting up after you've tried to do go Meg, go Meg. No, don't get down there. Don't. Because if you get down there, who is
Mm.
going to get you up? I hope you're not you by yourself. So the reality is the way he moved on from her, it implies that perhaps
He wanted something younger.
he wanted better, younger. It's better in some ways.
Mm.
And I'm just gonna say that because I don't want to say the other things. So
Right.
just
Because it keeps him alive as a man. Makes him feel alive as a man.
sound good,
I don't know.
sound good. Said they act like the women that reared some of those men.
hmm
Pronouns are we? So I think that this comment right here, I just want to go back to it because here's the thing, right? For that guy that I mentioned,
hmm
that wants to be identified as she and such, right? The pronouns that I
Mhm.
stated earlier, that person would definitely take heavy offense
Mhm.
to being even referred to as a him and he and his, all of these pronouns that you're using here that don't refer to the.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not. I'm trying. I'm
Mhm.
working on. I'm working on me, y'all. But I think that I'm going to say I know people in society. I know people who are those people who are him,
Mhm.
but they don't want to be a him, and they take high offense to people calling them a him.
I know
Whoops,
something.
sorry, y'all. My cam, it was probably falling most of this time, but it's there now. But yeah,
But we can go on and on. There needs
hmm
to be part two.
I'm telling you. She said and got 5 million for the marriage. Oh, she's talking about Janet.
Janet. Mm-hmm. Janet got more than 5 million.
Yeah, and still getting paid. And still getting paid. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Jackson, if you're nasty. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. I think we have to say a man is not hard to get. So a man, I don't believe. I don't believe. I don't believe women should be out there trying to get men. I think that men are supposed to vet women, not the other
Mm-hmm.
way around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Right.
sorry. I'm gonna be an advocate for that to the end. But I mean, you do what you want to do. Y'all out here getting on your knees proposing to these men. This man he ain't choose you, so he ain't choose you. Then what makes you think he choosing you now? He so he's gonna give you a ring because he can see that you're desperate for a ring. These are my thoughts. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
men accepting proposals from women. He sees that you're desperate for a ring, and that's the reason that you're on your knees instead of waiting for him to choose,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he sees that he's going to allow you to take care of him because now you're the one proposing marriage, so you have now are responsible financially to get married. He's gonna let you do that, and he's gonna choose somebody else and run off with your money. So there's
And he's gonna go outside the country to find someone because he's threatened. He feel he just doesn't understand why you feel you need to take his role. So he will
exactly.
find someone who understands the woman's position in a relationship. You don't. In his mind. If you proposing to him, you don't understand a woman's position in in a relationship.
So I think, well, he said younger women cost less money, child. They do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he might be. I don't know. He may. He may have a point. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been married 20 years and I ain't never thought about proposing to no man that's desperate. Be I gotta agree with you on that. But I'm of
Mm-hmm.
the mindset that if a man wants you, right? If a man wants you and he's been raised with the right conditioning, he'll choose you. And even if a man wants you and he's not been raised with the right conditioning, he'll still choose you. Men don't have to. I think the one thing about men that we don't have to worry about in this lifetime or the next is that when a man wants a woman, nobody has to condition them as to whether or not to choose a woman. I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they have to be conditioned as to what that looks like once they
Yes.
got her, how it
Mm-hmm.
is that they keep a woman, how it is
Mm-hmm.
they align themselves with best practices to nourish a relationship, to pour into that woman, and how to show up to support her. I think sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that has to be taught. But I think the basic confines of a man being a man and sitting with and choosing his woman, I think that's something that does not have to be conditioned.
No,
Um,
I agree with you.
I said majority of black men are single, childless, and we are earning more money being a single black man in the United States is where the action is. I guess. So in wrapping up, Our
Mhm.
final topic of discussion is relationship building 101, steps defined as well as our guide to how to do that or foundation. And I think that you guys have kind of touched a bit on that.
Mhm.
Um, but here is what I have. I have like a tried and true tested method that has always worked for my patients. Okay. Number one, step one is making sure that you have healthy boundaries. You've done your self work. So you know
Mhm.
self, you know what self needs to be the best version of self. You know what things are triggers that create the less best version of self, right? So understanding your positive and negative triggers, that's your number one thing, right? As a result of that, create healthy boundaries. As a result of that, create a list of expectations or things that you would love for this person to come into your life, adding value to your life and doing, right? The boundaries are going to be the non-negotiables, the things you don't even have a discussion about. Because if those non-negotiables are that person, then you unseat yourself. You don't even seat yourself in the first place because you should be vetting from a distance, and you could just be moving on to the next person, right? If the non-negotiable conversation doesn't take place and is successful, and that person's not those things, then you don't even move to the
Mhm.
expectation conversation, okay?
Mhm.
And this is during the vetting stages, right? When you're on the first date, because that person has met all of your non-negotiable components, they're not that person. They're not the person that brings out the worst in you. And now you've already established that some of those expectations, top five, let's say, while you had conversations on the phone or via text, etc., you've already established that they're more than willing to kind of meet you on those things. I
Mhm.
think you should then move to a first date. First date should be some place where you can actually have a conversation. I'm not an advocate of people going on dates at skate parks and things where they're going to play loud music, but you can't really get to know that person. So I say a public park if you're trying to err on the side of it being inexpensive and more intimate, or dinner, dinner or lunch date.
Mhm.
Go out where you guys can sit in an intimate setting and have a conversation about the things that you expect they expect and how it is that you expect to build with a person and what that looks like, right? Allow yourself to have that space for that expanded conversation. And then after you've dated them for a while and you feel very comfortable with them, you feel really aligned with them. If you are the male, it's now it's on you.
Mhm.
Men control access to relationships. So now the ball is in your court. You should be inviting her to be in something more exclusive. And you should be telling her specifically what that would look like at the phase that you see yourself evolving into then. Some men jump right into marriage, like I want to marry you.
Mhm.
Good, I know it's us and against the world. Some men think they need a little bit more time to observe you. And what that looks like is, hey, listen, I don't want you seeing anyone else. I don't want you dating anyone else. I want you to be exclusively mine. Or if you're in a polyamorous relationship,
Mhm.
I want you to be exclusive to us, not everybody else, not entertaining option. What is that going to take? Right? But make the commitment. And then you start building on what's going to be your courtship. Continue to take that person out. Continue to know what parts of them are complementary to you. Continue to let them know that you value them. You value their contribution, that you value their presence in your life. You value the energy that they bring. You like what it is that you have. And then make a formal commitment at that point. You've got to have a process that works, because if you don't and you keep deciding to pick and accept whatever comes and is seated before you, you're going to open yourself up for a plethora of options that are not befitting.
Mhm.
Okay. And here's the thing, contrary to popular belief, I do not believe that in the grand scheme of things, the entire race of Black people will completely divest. I think that a large population of the young people are
Mhm.
divesting from relationships with other Black people. And that's okay.
Mhm.
I think that as long as we accept that we are a culture of people defined by whatever cultures, traditions, customs define us, right?
Mhm.
as long as we're very much intact with that, we continue to hand that down. That'll be the thing that, as a culture, we will never let go of, and our legacy lines, our torch can continue to be picked up. I do not feel like we should be pressured to silence the people that we coexist with if they are from other cultures. But I do think that we do have to accept the reality that if we decide to date outside of the specific race or culture of Black America,
Hmm.
excuse
That's it.
me, thank you. We're putting ourselves at risk of eventually no longer being Black Americans
Hmm.
as far as our lineage and our legacy is concerned, you know? So what do you think are the steps to having building a healthy foundation for relationships, Santa? And you guys put your steps up there. Go ahead, Susanna. Tell me what your steps to having a healthy, building a healthy foundation for relationship is
I
looking like.
mean, I agree with I agree with the things you said, but I think what one of the things that's important is the ability to communicate with each other, honestly, openly, present what are your expectation of the relationship, be able to hear that piece of the other person, take a look at how the two of you, what are the two of you goals that fits each other, and how in some ways is that, how do you say it, what are you all looking for in that relationship, what are you all trying to build in that relationship, is it kids involved, how are you all managing your finances such that you are building wealth in your relationship, um, and I think, just kind of also coming from a West Indian perspective is knowing each other's family and being part of each other's family, because as a Caribbean person, I grew up with that extension. There's always the other family is really an extension of us. And having relationships or marriage without that family, you really miss something. That's really missed because he's got to know my family. I've got to know his family. So, because the elders in your family has an important role, even in your marriage, believe it or not. And that's missing. And I think that's one of the things that's missing in this culture. The elders in this culture is to babysit. The babysit you. And that's not what just the babysitting. Grandma always babysits, but grandma is the knowledge of how the culture looks, how the culture is, and what are the expectations, and how people are in a relationship, and that's very different to how American perceive what a grandmother does. And not, you don't dump your kids at grandma. That's what happens up here. So I think those are important things to have in a relationship that keeps the relationship healthy, and just the ability to be honest with each other at all costs. So if you lay out your expectation as you are dating, there is an understanding of what is expected if this relationship goes further or doesn't go further than just the dating. Rather than we just, I like him, he's cute, she's cute, and then we get married and has no concept of each other,
Right.
each other once.
See, that's the part that I didn't agree with when it comes to Kevin Samuel's ideation. Like, you're telling people to look at what's in front of them and build based off of that. So you're setting people up for divorce right after they have
Right, right.
kids, or divorce within 10 years or so. Because if people are getting married when they're younger and then they have this heavy expectation that's unrealistic for their partner,
Hmm.
and then they start gaining a little weight or not hitting the gym as often, or you know what I mean, or if they get repositioned, get fired, laid off, whatever have you, when they're no longer making that money. Because that's the problem that I have with the association with high value men being
Hmm.
men that are of high money situations, right?
Right,
Financial situations. Money is not everything, because
right.
money is situational, it's temporary. wealth should be the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the building aspect should be where I would want somebody who is intelligent enough, who is educated enough, who is skilled enough physically to be able to sustain a long term relationship so that we can build a healthy legacy
Right.
moving forward. Now, I do not think that that's something that people think of, because I think that
Right.
generation of people have been taught to think that money makes the world go round.
Yeah, round and around
Yeah,
this way instead of this way instead of this way.
yeah, you become
But
a dog
but,
chasing its own tail.
but it's the discussion about money. It's I think it's a discussion about how we are going to build money in our relationship or in our marriage. Not that I come in with $10 million
Right.
and
So that $10 million is going to be gone, because the reality is this: like the money that you bring into the relationship has nothing to do with the
nothing to do.
generational wealth that we're going to build
Right.
together. We should be building a legacy and a history of very high quality content where we're handing down rituals, practices,
Right.
traditions, culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're teaching money management as a
Management.
means to maintain and sustain the wealth, right? So it's about having the right mindset around what creates sustainability or stability over the course of time in a healthy
Right.
relationship. And I think that that's the piece that's missing. I do think
Right.
you're right about the way that young people see the grandparents, because I do see a lot of young people in their 30s complaining about, oh well, Gen X, Gen Z, what I mean, Gen X grandparents ain't out here, baby boomers ain't out here watching their grandkids. They're not there to
What should I
watch
get?
them kids. They ain't
No.
make them kids. but but no, I think that there should be quality time spent with
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren, and children have to
Absolutely.
learn that when they make decisions to become parents and to get married, for us being grandparents, we don't have to put our lives on the line or
And
on
right.
hold for them and their interests. However, I do think that those grandparents, however young or old they are, they do have to realize that we do have a responsibility as matriarchs of our
Oh,
legacy.
absolutely. We are
And
the
our
founder of knowledge.
responsibility includes us spending quality time with those children and giving them their history, giving them their
Right.
cultural legacy. And I think that that's one of the things that one of the commenters earlier spoke to earlier. But that those are my beliefs. I do think that we are indebted to that, and I think that that's what we should be doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you know that's where I am. Again, I do want to emphasize that we are at the outset of Mental Health Awareness Month, and for
Mm-hmm.
those of you, male or female, who is struggling around things that life situations that seem to be abundantly overwhelming or whatever, if you find that you are suicidal, homicidal, delusional, having hallucinations of any kind, auditory, visual, etc., olfactory, if those are things that you're struggling with, please do not hesitate to call the crisis line. They're there. They have somebody there 100% of the time that will
Mm-hmm.
help you navigate what next steps look like for you and get you the help that you need. Um, for those who contributed to the content today in the discussion, I thank you guys for watching. For those who appeared on the show and featured on the show and shared their opinions and had this discussion with me, I really appreciate all of you. As all, I
Mm-hmm.
love you guys. Continue to spread
Mm-hmm.
light, positivity, and inspiration to those people that are connected with you. I'm going to read this last comment. The way to better relationships between Black men and Black women in the U.S. as a group. Step one, step up their game and compete for the men to stop being single. Compete for the men to stop being single mothers. Oh, maybe that's the next one. To stop being single mothers and get their MRS degree between 18 to 25. Ooh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you something. Now that I know that you're a male, let me tell you something. Men should be doing men things and minding men's
Mm-hmm.
business. Women have been competing for men for ages. We never have not been non-competitive
Right.
creatures. I think that there's an assumption because you guys don't see that. Men have not really seen it or acknowledged or noticed what that looks like because like normal traditional men have been doing men things. This is this is the only generation of men where I've seen an abundance of men overly concerned with what
Mhm.
females are doing
Women's are doing.
and willing to argue with females.
And
Traditional men,
how it how it supports them.
right. Traditional men do not do that. They do not do that. That's just not that. Mm-mm. They don't do that. They'll tell you
Mm-mm.
a lot of things, but they're not going to tell you to do that. So I'm gonna say that, okay? And here's the thing. I'm a heavy advocate for marriage, for love and stability in relationships.
Mhm.
And I'm a heavy advocate for Black American people to seek the type of relationships they desire if they want to be with other Black American people.
Mhm.
However, and I'm not the biggest advocate, and I'm going to tell you guys now, I'm not the biggest advocate of heterosexual only relationships. I believe that people should find love regardless of what that looks like. And we should not be the judge of that. I think that the
Mhm.
last judge, the only judge is God. And I just hope that they get into heaven. That's all. That's all. You understand? And I don't know an interpretation in the Bible that is really going to give me the answers that I'm look for because I've looked for ages in all types of religion, but I don't get uh, a really good understanding. So I just hope that whatever life that they are after, people in general are able to acquire that while they're living here and they feel fulfilled. You understand? Because I just
Mhm.
think it's best for anybody and everybody. I just think that when it starts to become this thing where people are pushing their value systems on us, and that means we have to move and shape our lives
Mhm.
differently and
Around them.
that's who they are as whatever they identify as, right? I think that becomes an impediment on my journey, right? And I
Mhm.
start feeling a kind of way about that. Like I'm not a cis woman. I was born a woman and that's it.
Mhm.
I don't identify as a cis woman. Okay. I'm a I'm a woman. I'm a mother,
Female.
wife.
Mhm.
Okay. That's it. I've been a she, a her, hers. And I'm gonna continue to be a she, a her, and a hers. Like,
And the
so
girl. Mhm.
yeah, all of that. So I just don't feel like I don't feel I don't feel like, people I feel like the complexities that we've introduced in America are just illogical. They just don't make a lot of sense to me. That's just how I feel. I feel like we need to be as mental health professionals, I feel like we have the language in the DSM-5 TR to be able
Mhm.
to accurately address those concerns, but I feel like so many people are afraid to do that now because of the politicism that's
Because of, yep. Right.
I just, you know, I just those are my thoughts though. So it is what it is. Okay. So he said only 28% of black women are married. I don't know
And
if that is true, and I don't know to what extent you consider to be marriage. I don't know if you're probably looking at the legal stats if you're pulling up on the internet. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But that's not a concern of mine. What I am concerned with is the overwhelming culture of people and ideas that create this divestment mindset.
mhm.
And
And I also think that people have moved away from understanding how to incorporate spirituality in their lives, or
yeah,
don't talk about that stuff,
mm,
even as you're dating.
right. And for some people that's important,
Hmm.
and I feel like for some people it isn't. But
Mostly
either way, you have to have that
that
conversation because
conversation.
you can I don't know, you can do what y'all want to do.
You could what?
You can do what y'all want to do. But you cannot have a healthy relationship if you guys are on two opposite ends of the coin.
Yeah.
If somebody's deeply into their spirituality and the other person is not, that's not going to work long
That's
term.
not a good fit.
I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you put on these internet streets. It's just not going to
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
So There's that. Said before 1965, 80% of black women were married. Before 1965, it wasn't compulsory to have it recorded in court records. So maybe a higher percentage of that were married. You just don't know.
Mhm. Marriage was important back then.
Yeah.
Women married because they wanted to have a family. Men
Mm-hmm.
married because they wanted to have a family.
Mm-hmm. Common goal. So, any final thoughts and reflections, Susie, before we wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, no, I mean, I think for folks, it's just really taking a look at how you feel on any given day, what's going on with you. Be honest with you with that, and reach out and know that it's okay. That people do get sad, people do feel depressed, people do feel suicidal, but there are places, there are numbers to reach. What is it? 988. They've changed their numbers now, haven't they? Changed their number. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Have people in your life who can support you when you are down. Have people in your life who you can call that honestly will be there to listen.
And to
And
not just be a sounding board.
yeah,
Because sometimes we need a sounding board, but sometimes we need somebody that's going to give us something
give
back
us
that's reliable
absolutely
information
right,
that helps us to further explore where we really are at that moment.
right.
And sometimes to take us out of the place that we're in at the moment because maybe we have
Mm-hmm.
a limited or skewed view.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But so that's all we have, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Continue to like and share the content. If you have already subscribed, I thank you for your subscription. Turn the notification bell on so you can see when I go live. We know that we're coming up on June 1st, and I'm going
Ah,
to be consistently every week here on Monday evening, and we're going to do this thing, and that's where we are. Okay,
mhm.
so definitely expect it 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will definitely be here. Um, that's it. If you have found the content here at whatever point of the content to be useful, share it with somebody. We need to start having a conversation essentially, because if we continue to
No,
move to the right,
that's right.
that's true though. If we continue to move into the direction of divestment, essentially we will have to sit with a very uncomfortable truth, and that is the death of the black race in America. We have to do something right now if we want to prevent that. And that's having the conversation, encouraging deeper connections to spirituality, deeper
Mhm,
connections to our roots, whatever that
mhm,
may look like. And sometimes we have to accept the fact that we're not as black as we told ourselves, okay?
mhm,
Sometimes we
mhm.
have to accept that we're not as mixed as we told ourselves. Sometimes we have to accept that we are not well versed as we told ourselves. We have to be curious to accept something else in that has been proven to be true by science in order for us to have an expanded conversation around culture. So, with that being said, I'm out, you guys. Later days.
Yay.
Bye.